Thank you. So I see our little icon that tells us we're on YouTube. We do have a quorum of council. As you just heard, Councillor Lush is going to join us as soon as he possibly can. We're to continue on. And we are in the presence of multiple clerk's department employees, so we're okay to move forward. Are there any additions to today's agenda? I'll call the meeting to order at 1:03. Any additions to today's agenda? Seeing none, I need a confirmation and a motion that to recommend that the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamlin access falls at the agenda for the regular council meeting held September 21st, 2021 be approved. Thanks, Pat. Seconded by Scott. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I'll now ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we can conclude that there are 0. And that moves us to section 5, the public question period. We'll start by asking clerks if we have any specific members of the public with us today who wish to ask a question related to today's agenda.
Through you, Mayor Kane, we do have Faye McFarlane with us, who is registered for the meeting.
Thank you. And Faye, if you're with us and you can hear me, you have a question for today's agenda, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kane. I have sent council an email this morning, and in that email are about 8 questions. I don't know if Your Honor or Your Worship wants to deal with those questions today because they're quite lengthy and probably require some consideration before they're being answered. So I can provide them if you wish, but perhaps otherwise, maybe my overriding question would be, is council going to seek more information with respect to this issue and therefore a more detailed report? And accordingly, would this issue be deferred until that information is provided? I guess that's my overriding question at this point, unless you would like me to proceed with my other questions.
You have other questions other than the ones you sent us by email?
No,
okay.
those were the questions.
Right.
I wasn't sure if council had an opportunity to even read the email.
I know I did. I turned to other members of council. Has everyone received this morning's email and gone over it? So while I have you there, then I'll open it up for members of council. If you have any comment, Scott?
Because of my work commitments this morning, I'm not aware of that particular email.
Okay.
And therefore I have no knowledge of the content.
Okay, well, we received actually 3 emails this morning. I was hoping we could at least discuss during this time period. Do any of them, either Larry or Pat, have anything on the email received? Yes, Larry?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I read Faye McFarlane's email. So I took a drive up to Alnwick Road just to confirm in my own mind what was going on there. First thing I see is a sign that's posted near the junction of Alnwick Hill and 18 that said no ATVs or motorbikes. What I do know is that her road is getting used a lot by those vehicles. The other thing I noticed was there's no speed limit posted, which indicates through our speed limits is that if no posted sign is there, then the speed limit is assumed at 80 kilometers an hour. So, and also noting that the roadway is paved. There's hardly any soft shoulder at all. So I understand what Faye's talking about. And this leads to another issue is, does the county allow ATVs on the roads, on their roads. Do I have that correct? That I understand that there is no bylaw to allow ATVs or ORVs on county roads.
I believe you're
Anybody?
correct. I believe you're correct, Larry. I think that they have allowed an exemption if they're crossing perpendicularly. In other words, if they're in a municipality that allows ATVs and on a road that goes across the county road, they are allowed perpendicular access, but that's all, unless it's specifically stated. I know that a couple of other municipalities, for example, Trent Hills, have requested sections of county roads be included in their plan, and county council acquiesced and allowed that to happen. So that's, I believe, I can return to staff if anyone knows more about that than I just stated. That's
Well, then-
my knowledge.
So then just to follow up to that is, I would ask the question is, how are ATVs accessing Olnick Hillnet Road to gain access to the off-road area that they're looking for? Because there's no other access to that route other than Peacock. And it seems that most of the ATVs and motorbikes are coming up, I guess that would be eastbound on Olnick Road from 18. And I could be corrected, Faye, if I'm wrong.
It's not 18. Is that County Road 29? Is that the Harwood Road? I can't remember the number.
Harwood Road, sorry, it could be 20, not
Harwood
sure.
is
Anyway,
15. Harwood is
15,
15.
15, sorry, 15. So that's my question, is that in addition to that is, how are people going to connect to these township roads without traveling along county roads in some cases? So that's one of the situations that we're going to be dealing with, is whether people can access township roads without going on county roads.
No,
So
they can't.
that's going to, yeah, so we're going to have a real look at that, before we pass this bylaw, I would say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, point of fact, they're breaking the law if they're on the county road. Yes, Pat?
A couple of things. Am I right in assuming that even though the county has that, you can only go on a county road other than to simply cross it if it's a road that is listed in their bylaw? But at the same time, they don't enforce that other than regular OPP, the same as us, correct? So when we talk about, well, they shouldn't be on the county roads, all those different things, we keep running into the same thing. It's not being enforced anyway, unless they're breaking some of the other laws, like the speed limit or the licensing or all those things that the OPP does do. That was part of my understanding why we had talked about looking at a pilot project, because the law is already broken on a daily basis. And we can't fix that because the OPP isn't going to enforce. So the county road may be in our township, but we have nothing to do with it in terms of enforcement. I'm waffling now, to be honest. I honestly still think that a 1-year pilot project is the way to go, because I feel like we need to start something to see if there's a problem. And then if there's a problem, we go, okay, this is not going to work. And I know that in terms of the bylaw itself, that this is just in the discussion due to the questions. But as soon as we start saying not this road and not that road, we run into the same thing. We are making a bylaw that we cannot enforce. And I really struggle with voting for something that I know we will never enforce. That's just my only comment.
Okay, Pat, we have staff, I think, at 108, but I do need to clarify. The OPP are not refusing to enforce. They're finding it difficult to enforce simply because of the time constraints. But I mean, if they were to see an ATV going down, if they were to meet or pass an ATV on the County Road 15, they would definitely stop and pull them over.
Okay, so that's my confusion then, because I had thought what the representative had said is that they would attempt to pull them over, but at the
Yes.
same time, if they speeded up, they weren't going to get into a chase with me.
No, that's right. You're correct. They will not chase them because of the potential for, injury and
So-
liability and everything else.
So to my mind, and it may be wrong, if you are a law-abiding, trying to do it right ATVer, once you understand, I just lost everybody. Okay.
There you go.
Once you understand that being on the county roads is illegal, you will quite possibly try to find a different way to go, or wouldn't run away from the police if they put their lights on to pull you over. But that's where the issue has been all along. Are we trying to hinder the people who are doing it right, or the people that are tearing up yards and things like that? Like, the bylaw is not going to stop them, because they're doing it now, and our bylaw says, no, you cannot. So all that a bylaw that we're putting in place at this point is hindering the people who are doing it right. If we put in a bylaw, or don't put in a bylaw, or no, leave the current bylaw in place. Sorry, I had to think of where we had ended up in all this. And I've been confused all along because of that one point. We don't have a bylaw that lets it happen right now. The complaints that we all have are things that are legitimate complaints, but having the bylaw doesn't stop it. And we have lots of law-abiding ATVers. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Before the conversation goes a whole lot farther, I'm going to let staff weigh in, but I do have to, interject here. This is not an open public meeting. We had that meeting. That ship sailed. The arguments that were being discussed here were discussed at the open public meeting. I'm not, and this has not been advertised as an open public meeting. So for us to open up this whole debate again, I'm not sure it's ethical. Having said that, I'll turn to staff. I think I saw Arthur trying to get his hand in there. Yes.
Sure. Thank you. If I may, Mayor Kane, respond to a couple of issues that have been raised today, but also to the questions that I have seen submitted as well. And I know that the resident, Faye McFarland, has been able to submit some material with some detailed questions or comments. Many of these questions and comments were tried to address through the report, but she is flagging obviously some issues that continue to be of concern to her. But for example, the issue of the cost of educating the public on SAFE. I know the SAFE communities talked before about being involved in that, as is the ATV club. So there are a number of things related to that. The enforcement is with the OPP. We do have bylaw enforcement. We have a complaint procedure locally with us as well. We don't have an idea if we'll, the extent or the number of complaints at this point, but that's obviously the purpose of the pilot, is to get a sense of what is the sort of the concern within the community, or the misuse of the trails, or the roadways or otherwise. I have not done an analysis of, again, shoulders on roads or digging up the roads. That's just will be something, again, our roads department is going to have to monitor, whether it's through complaint and through driving our roads and through having our road patrol to see if there's damage or if there's areas of concern. With respect to the legal, we've passed a bylaw permitted under the Highway Traffic Act to prohibit ATVs. What we're proposing, or at least allowing for council to consider, is to pass a bylaw to actually permit them. In other words, within the legislative framework that you're allowed to, and other municipalities have in the county and elsewhere, have passed a bylaw to provide that extra guidance or extra regulation that you see appropriate in the area. I don't really have any comments on the environmental components. These are observations. I understand Faye McFarland's comments. With respect to speed, there are speed provisions in the Highway Traffic Act. They're identified in the report. And Councillor Williamson has mentioned that as well, as far as the restrictions on speed. We would address that, making sure that people are well aware of any speed limits that would apply to the reduced amounts applicable to ATVs as part of this bylaw. And again, I think a big concern is around permitted roads. The points raised through the earlier email from Diane Huska, as well as Faye and others, two other emails that received the same. We're concerned about roads being prohibited because they are deemed to be unsafe. And in our case, we know we maintain the roads to the minimum maintenance standards required by the province. We want to make sure that the roads continue to be safe. We also want to avoid, by declaring one road not permissible or another one is to allow sort of the fabric of roads to take any traffic that does in fact occur. In other words, not to channel them through specific or designated routes. And I think the last part is we did get, there's a point here about time of year and time of day. We have the restrictions in the bylaw proposed. And insurance, we do have comments from our insurer. We posted those as part of the report last time. Obviously, that's a monitoring issue as well to see if there are in fact claims, if there's concerns, or any further liability assessed by the community, by our insurance agent as a result of activity within our township. I was able to locate a flyer from the OPP where they distribute as part of their information campaign. And it clarifies that riders may cross a highway only if they possess a valid G2, G, or an M or M2 class license, along with registration and insurance. And these are all things that we were expecting if someone is going to be using one of the roadways to meet some of those requirements. There also was the comment about ATVs not being permitted on county roads, and that is correct overall. There are exceptions identified in the County of Northumberland's bylaw to permit them in certain sections. If you look that up, I can post that information if you like, but if you identify that, Trent Hills has a number of segments where they've identified where they're permitting them, as well as there are a few other locations in other townships in the county. So that is something that we would work with the county if in fact we need those linkages areas as part of the experience through this pilot as well. So I hope that deals with some of the issues with respect to council exercising its authority permitted under the Highway Traffic Act, the staffing and bylaw information that we would be pursuing both as bylaw enforcement, but all responding to complaints, but also working with the OPP and our Police Services Board to deal with complaints, as well as the legal and speed noise issues that have been flagged as well. Again, that was the purpose of this report, to try and consolidate as best we can a number of the comments and provide council with that information for the report and the consideration later in this meeting.
Okay, thanks, Arthur. You touched on the second email that we received from Diana Ruska, request to have Alnwick Hill Road removed from the pilot project. And you touched on the reasons why we haven't designated or specified some roads as being, outside the pilot project.
Right.
I think for us to start looking at individual requests, we're going to be inundated with every person who lives on a road who doesn't want ATVs there. They're going to make a request, and probably with some very, some reasonably good arguments as to why the ATV should not be on that road. I don't know how we can go down that path and start, receiving those requests and saying yes to one and no to another. Boy, we're really opening ourselves up for, as far as I'm concerned, a real mess. Did I see a hand, Scott, or has what you were thinking gone or been answered? Or
I do have some thoughts. I think in essence of the time and the parameters that we're supposed to be working within at this moment, I will hesitate until we get to the time of the report.
okay, so at that point, I mean, we've had a request basically for a deferral, and I'm having a little issue myself with the fact that, it's the morning of the meeting when we get this request. I mean, I'm not sure how much fairness there is in that. I said, we made a very difficult decision. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not telling anybody anything you don't already know. I'm not a pro ATVer, but sitting in the seat that I'm in, I felt that I had to make the decision I did based on the referendum that we had, the public input we had. We're here representing ratepayers, and it was it wasn't even close, the referendum that we held, and that's why I voted the way I did. And I will also add that those people who were on the pro ATV side have been very patient over the last number of weeks. I've had only one call asking me, when is this going to happen? They're waiting for us to make a decision and try to make the best one we can. And then go back to what Pat said and what Arthur said. This is a pilot. This isn't an end all and be all. We're not making a forever decision here. This is something we're going to be able to adjust, continue or end when the pilot project is over. So. Any other comments from members of council or staff? So I'm sure we've exceeded our 10 minutes, but I'm not willing to shut people down on this. If any of the people who are present still have another question, go forward with it. Yes, Larry?
I think I'm going to hold my questions or comments until further in the agenda.
Right, when this comes up.
Because I do have some further comments.
Right, it does come up in the agenda for sure. There'll be a full discussion, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing or seeing none, then we'll move on to section 6, presentations, delegations. First one up is 6.1, the United Way Northumberland update. We have, I'm pretty sure I saw Bobby's name on the participant list from CAO United Way Northumberland. Welcome, Bobby, if you're with us.
Can everyone hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Kane, council members. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm not sure if I'm able to share my screen.
Okay, Emily can make you a partner somehow that you can do that.
Wonderful. Oh, that's great. Okay, so I'm Bobby Dawson, CEO at Northumberland United Way, and Northumberland United Way has been in this community for more than 50 years. We're going on to our 52nd year. Next slide, please. So for those of you who don't know, we are the largest funder of social service programs outside of government, and we work closely with many community partners across sectors to build a stronger community in Northumberland County. This is just some photos of the team. We serve communities from Port Hope all the way to Brighton, up the Trent Hills, down to Coburg, so all over Northumberland County. We provide services that sometimes are centralized in the more populated, highly populated and highly serviced areas, but we also have outreach services and community partners who extend services well into the more rural areas in Northumberland. Next slide, please. You may or may not know that 1 in 3 residents in Northumberland County access a United Way funded program or service. So when we think about the impact of that on families, on residents, and on the greater community, it's just immeasurable. So this is a story of someone local who lost everything or felt like they lost everything through the pandemic. And with the help of United Way and community partners, they were able to feel like they're able to put their lives back together. So last year, we were able to put $951,801 back into Northumberland County essential programs and services, and that was as a result of local partnerships with donors and volunteers, as well as some provincial and federal partnerships through the pandemic. Excuse me. So since the pandemic began and closures started happening in March of 2020, United Way Northumberland came together to develop the COVID-19 Community Relief Fund. And since then, we have invested over $45,000 in community programs and services as a way to meet the immediate needs that have presented themselves through COVID-19. And this is an open fund, and it's available to any service organization. And it's really outside of the processes of our traditional funding model. So we've got more freedom with this fund to respond in a timely fashion to those who need it. Next slide. This has meant that we've been able to support over 30 organizations across Northumberland. Typically, you might see about 8 community partners per year, 6 to 8 community partners per year that are funded annually from United Way. We were able to extend our reach far greater as a result of both our local COVID-19 relief fund as well as the Emergency Community Support Fund partnership with the federal government. We do our work in 3 areas. So we help kids be all that they can be. We move people from poverty to possibility, and we build strong communities. So in our All That Kids Can Be focus area, we've been able to reach 354 families this year that were able to join the PPP Positive Parenting Program provided by Rebound that supports the entire family. So it provides resources and strategies for young kids and teens as they cope with life's ups and downs. We've also been able to support 179 children who accessed mentorship programs with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and 92 children who attended online music programs and training through Sounds of the Next Generation. Next slide. This is Laura's story. You know, I think it's common for a lot of folks through COVID-19 where they either lost their jobs or they had kids that were being homeschooled and, you know, finances have been tough for them. As a result, the backpack program has supported many kids in returning to school by providing school supplies in a backpack so that they feel ready for day one. Under our Building a Strong Community focus area, that focus area looks at mental health, it looks at isolation and inclusion. And we've been able to assist 684 families to receive counseling support through Northumberland Community Counseling Center. As well, we fund 211, which if you haven't heard is a fantastic program. I'll get to it in a little bit. And as well, we've been able to help those who are struggling with multiple complex issues. So, you know, food, housing supports, other assistance, things like that. And we were able to provide 167 home care visits. Next slide, please. So common to a lot of folks in Northumberland County, you know, as a result of having a lot of retirees live in the area, getting to the end of life, often a partner will pass away, leaving the other partner to cope on their own, and in some cases requiring care and assistance that they hadn't previously needed. So this is another way in which we support people through that focus area. So from poverty to possibility, we do a lot under this umbrella. This year, over the holidays, 708 households in Northumberland County received support through the Salvation Army's Christmas Hamper program. 395 people were assisted with intensive housing services, and 69 others were supported with rent geared to income applications through the Help Center. So Transition House, as well as you know, is an essential program locally supporting those experiencing homelessness. So as a result of the support through United Way, we were able to provide 895 nights of shelter to 53 individuals in our community. This is Mike's story. Sometimes there's outstanding rent and that can pile up, and next thing you know, someone who was living paycheck to paycheck or month to month and now finds himself in a situation where he's unable to find housing. So we've been able to distribute food supports through our Northumberland Eats program, which I will also get a bit more specific on a little later. So we've got a number of initiatives that Northumberland United Way runs as an organization. We support a lot of really great organizations in the community, and we also run some of our own programs. So these are just 4 of the programs that we run internally that have impact in the community. So for Backpacks for Kids, more than 17,000 kids since 2005 have received backpacks to start the school year. In the last couple of years, we've adjusted things a bit to include sanitizer, masks, and things like that, so kids are safe in returning to school. Day of Caring is a program that supports agencies and those in need throughout the community for projects that would otherwise not get done. Perhaps it's painting, gardening, major projects around the house for people who otherwise would not be able to afford it. There are a lot of great sponsors and a lot of great partners with that program. Northumberland Eats is a pilot. It was a pilot program that began last December, and it's a partnership with Northumberland County. And it began as a result of wanting to provide a hot meal to folks in need, increased need as a result of the pandemic. And as well, we looked at stimulating local economy for small businesses who were suffering as a result of closures during the pandemic. So since then, more than 11,000 vouchers totaling $70,000 has been invested in food vouchers to address food insecurity. So we're going to take a lead on that moving forward, and we're hoping that that's a program that will be available for folks for many years to come. Period Promise is an initiative that we've recently taken on locally. It's something that's happening across the United Way movement across the country. And what it is it's a program that raises awareness about period poverty. So often folks have to decide between buying groceries or paying bills and making sure that they have what they need for menstrual hygiene. And we want to raise awareness about that and product for people. United Way Northumberland has come on as a certified period poverty organization, which means that we provide products to folks in our office free of charge. And we are encouraging other organizations to do the same. So I have an official request here from Northumberland United Way, as well as Thrive Northumberland Coalition to End Violence. We request that Council adopt the following recommended action. That Council recognizes members of its community experience financial barriers in accessing menstrual hygiene products. And further, that Council support the work of Period Promise Northumberland by pledging its support to end period poverty in the municipality. And further, that Council consider the provision of free menstrual products in all municipal facilities as part of the 2022 budget deliberations. Next slide, please. For those who don't know, 211 is a resource available both by telephone and online. It is available 24/7 in over 150 languages, and it's a service that allows the navigation of the social service system, essentially. So non-emergency supports, food, housing, counseling, those kinds of things can all be found on 211. We are excited to say that we are a living wage employer. This is new for us just as of this spring. We've come on to agree that anyone working for United Way Northumberland will be paid at least a living wage. And we are encouraging other organizations to also adopt this. We are joined actually in the community by a couple of other companies who have come on as a certified living wage employer. So we're excited to share that with you. Next slide, please. So through the pandemic, we have learned a lot. We've been able to sort of shift our focus and do things a bit differently locally. We've been working with cross-sector partners in ways that we have never before. As a result of necessity, it's been a bit of an agitator that way, and in a good way, because we've been able to be more innovative and creative. And we really do believe that now is our time to continue that momentum that's been built through the pandemic. So we also have another request. Northumberland United Way requests Council to the following recommended action. That Council recognizes the contributions of Northumberland United Way by pledging financial support to the annual campaign as part of the 2022 budget deliberations. And further, that Council consider running a United Way payroll campaign with Council and staff. For more information, you can email me, reach out to me directly, or visit our website at my.org. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to members of council, first of all, for any comments or questions. Yes, Pat?
Hi, Bobby. Thank you so much for your presentation. There's so much that the United Way does that I know a fair bit about, and I've been very appreciative of how I've seen it help members of our community. I'm wondering what's been done to fill the gap with the Northumberland Community Counseling Center being closed.
That is a really good question. and one which our board was particularly interested in as sort of some of the changes were taking place. So we know there was a funding announcement recently that Cornerstone Family Violence Prevention Center has received some funding to take over that violence against women piece, which was a large portion of what Northumberland Community Counseling Center was covering. So that is going to be well taken care of by Cornerstone. Were a few other groups of individuals who were receiving counseling through NCCC that, from my understanding, as I know it, are still waiting to be picked up by another service. So that includes couples counseling. It includes LGBTQ, people who identify with LGBTQ groups, and a few others that are at this time, waiting for service to be picked up, and at a time when it's needed most. For us, it was concerning, and so we are looking to hopefully understand more about what's being done from a ministry standpoint for local services and programs. So that's a long way of saying I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's to me, it's really sad that what they the community they were serving was a community truly in need, especially the violence against women. When I saw it was closed, my heart did a bit of a jump, and I was hoping something was being put in to fill the gap. I believe, so someone else may correct me, that we are already taking part in Period Promise. And at least some of our buildings, I'm not sure if it's in all our community facilities, but that is something that we've completely jumped on board about.
Yay, that's great.
So, we'll just keep working, trying to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Any other members of council? Okay, thanks, Pat, for mentioning. I was going to also mention that we had already opted in, which is a good thing. That still leaves us with a couple of other considerations. First of all, I think we need a motion to receive for information. And I'm wondering if that motion should include direction to staff to look into request number 2, which was a program for withdrawal from salary donation toward United Way. That would, of course, be voluntary, depending on each and every individual member of staff and council. But should we include that in our motion? I'll turn to one of our clerks.
Excuse me, Bill. Yes, you can receive the presentation, and you can refer perhaps that request to the treasurer just to look into the possibilities with the payroll deduction and the support to the campaign. I believe that was an annual support. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I'll make that motion if you like, Bill. And I do apologize for not being here earlier. I did hear the banter that was going on between council and councillors over the ATV situation, what's coming forward later on. So, but I couldn't participate. We just had a little bit of an emergency in our kitchen. But thank you.
I'll second Mark's motion.
Okay, do we have is that you? Who's taking minutes, Emily? Is it you?
No, Mayor Kane, that'd be Kate.
Kate, okay. Do you have the wording, Kate, then?
That council received the request from Ms. Dawson, CEO at Northumberland United Way, and could refer to the treasurer with respect to the request for annual financial support and the payroll deduction.
Okay, so we have mover to second. My only question then, how will we find out about that? Is it going to be a report come forward, or will there be emails to staff and council, or how do we know what the outcome is?
I believe that the treasurer can, the annual support, that would be a budget, basically a budget request. I see her on screen there, so perhaps Nasrat can respond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can, in terms of the annual financial support, that will be a budget request. So I will incorporate that in the budget and council can deliberate on that. And in terms of the salary deduction, I'll bring a report before we launch it.
Appreciate that, Nazir. Any other questions? So I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. And again, Bobby, thank you for coming and
Thank you
seeing us
so
today.
much.
Good luck in
Great
the future
day.
with everything.
Thank you.
So we're moving to section 7 on our agenda. I'm looking for a motion. It's recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council go into public meeting under sections 22 and 34 of the Planning Act and or section 357 of the Municipal Act at 1:43 p.m. on September 21st, 2021. Thanks, Larry. Seconded by Scott. All in favor? That's carried. So we are now into public meeting. I guess, Emily, we need to have that section put up so all members of council can follow. Is it 7.2? We're on the sorry. Well, I can hardly, I'm going to have to go to my own screen. That's so small, I can't see it.
Okay, through you, Mayor Kane, we have 7.2 up on
Yeah,
screen.
Yeah, I've got it too here now. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Great, and we have Kelsey Jones from FOTEN joining us, and I believe Michael Keane as well.
Hi, Kelsey, welcome. Good
afternoon.
Can you have a cohort with you?
Sorry,
You have a cohort with you?
I'm just here, myself and
Okay.
my colleague Mike Keane, just the two of us, not so much a cohort.
You can going to see your report to council.
Yes. So good afternoon, council, staff, members of the public. My name is Kelsey Jones, and I'm a land use planner with FOTEN Planning and Design. Like I said, I am here with my colleague Mike Keane. We are here on behalf of the township to present a recommendation report for amendments to the township's official plan and zoning bylaw related to additional residential unit policies and provisions. So at this point, I don't have much to add beyond what is included in the recommendation report. And I know that that's up on the screen, but I will just note that there have been some changes to the amendments based on comments that were received from council, the public, and the county at the public meeting in April, as well as through discussion following that. So these changes are detailed in the report, but just to quickly go over them, they generally relate to exempting additional units from the county's development charges, the requirement of a well test for privately serviced lots, removing previously proposed language related to the primary farm cluster for units on agricultural lots, prohibiting units in the Oak Ridges Marine Core Zone and the Oak Ridges Marine Linkage Zone, not allowing detached additional structures in the Oak Ridges Marine area, and to remove the reference to the size of additional residential units in relation to the size of the principal dwelling for units that would be interior to a house. So beyond that, I don't have anything else to add, but if there are questions from council or the public related to the changes or the amendments in general, we would be happy to answer them.
Okay, I guess we'll start with the members of the public, if there's anyone here with either questions or input. I see a hand. No, I don't, excuse me. I do see a hand. I have a David Gadet.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Thanks. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to address the recommendation regarding a detached second residence on a property. As I understand, one would be allowed to build a second detached residence on a property up to 2,000 square feet or 50% of the current square footage of the existing home, whichever is less. This recommendation seems to me to be biased to the rich in the sense that only those with a 4,000 square foot home or bigger could actually build a 2,000 square foot residence. If the current home was say 1,400 square feet, then one would be restricted to a 700 square foot home. I find it hard to believe that there would be many couples that would want to live in a square foot home, especially if they are both retired. I think I would need a large garage attached, as that's where my wife would probably be putting me. In our case, and I imagine there'd be a lot of other individuals who this would apply to, we'd like to build beside our son. He's on a farm currently, so there's 70 plus acres. We're both retired, and ideally we'd like to plan to live there as long as possible. With their assistance, and she's a nurse, so hopefully we could live there right to the end of our life, and hopefully you're carrying us out of the home and we don't have to go into assisted living and all like this. I think a lot of people would like to do that. But in this case, their home is, I think, 1,600 or 1,700 square feet. Realistically, I just don't see us moving into an 800 square foot home. Now, if we were to add to my son's home and make it a 4,000 square foot home, now we can build a 2,000 square foot home. It doesn't make sense. If we had the kind of money to do that, it seems that we're restricting the people with not as much money from building something they'd actually like to live in. I mean, we'd be happy to live in 1,500 square feet. We don't want a 2,000 square foot home, but this restriction of 50% of the current size of the home seems to be, like I say, biased to those that have money and have very large homes. When I read it, and thanks to the council or to the township members, they clarified some because it was hard for me to understand, but I believe you can build onto the current home up to 2,000 square feet as a second residence, but being attached. Now, then why can't I build up to a 2,000 square foot home, 100 feet from their house or 200 feet if you have the property and obviously meeting all the septic and all like this. I just think this restriction on 50% doesn't make a lot of sense. I think that's about it. I appreciate you guys listening to me.
Okay, thank you. I see a member of staff, Sandra, has her hand up, so hopefully we'll get some clarity here. Sandra, you with us?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did speak with Mr. Gaudette during the week, and I tried to explain things to him accordingly. He did leave. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. He did leave me with the sense that he understood a little better. However, I wanted to bring to council's attention that back in April, there was a letter that we missed reading aloud to council. And I wanted to bring that forward today because it was promised that it would be. This is from Mr. Brian Lowe of 5 Fawn Hill Court. I would like the committee to be aware of my comments concerning Official Plan Amendment 12, File OPA 0221 and ZBA 0421. 1. Additional residential units within existing dwellings. There will need to be a licensing system run by the township for these additional apartments to ensure they are inspected on a regular basis by the fire department, as these will be used as Airbnbs in addition to other short and long-term accommodations. Will there be grandfathering of current additions to homes, and will they be licensed and inspected? Council should be aware that the lack of a licensing and inspection system has been encountered by cities like Toronto. These issues should be addressed up front, not down the road, to avoid getting into a mess. Don't leave it to future councils to clean up. 2. Additional residential units within accessory buildings on residential or agricultural property. As above, a licensing inspection system must be set up for these additions. In addition to Airbnbs, etc., there will be accommodations for seasonal workers on agricultural properties. To avoid the situation that has been highlighted by CBC and CTV in the last few weeks regarding the conditions that seasonal workers are asked to endure or live in, a licensing inspection system must be in place. Again, will grandfathering of a current building, drive shed, barns, bunkies, etc., be licensed and inspected. Additional accommodations that currently exist in Hamilton Township, some were built, renovated without basic building permits, should be identified and included in the licensing and inspection system. The township could generate additional funds, taxes, licensing, building permits, and possibly fire inspection fees from this change. I am in favor of amending the official plan if a system to ensure control and inspection is implemented. I do note that council was sent a copy of this email following the initial public meeting. It was also sent to Ms. Jones of Fulton Planning, and she has addressed the concerns of Mr. Lowe directly, but we did want to make sure this letter was officially presented to council as promised. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we need to actually get back to the question asked by Mr. Cadet, the tying the size of the secondary residence to the size of the principal building. I mean, this is something we've been arguing for years with regards to outbuildings. And I believe it's something we're going to attempt to fix today, that we realize that the size of the building's more pertinent to the size of the lot than it is the size of the original residence. So where does that leave us with this section on secondary residences? I mean, if someone has a 1,200 square foot home, you'd only be allowed to build a 600 square foot secondary residence. It's a cabin by today's standards.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can attempt to provide an answer.
Thank you.
So the limited 50% of the detached structure in relation to the principal dwelling is to ensure that there is that relationship between the principal dwelling and any new building that will be added to a lot, to ensure that that additional unit that's detached and in a separate structure is going to be subordinate to the principal dwelling. So should an owner wish to construct, if these amendments are approved today, if an owner with a smaller home wanted to construct a detached unit that was greater than 50%, they would have the potential to do that if they were to proceed through an application for minor variance. And at that point, those applications could be assessed on an individual basis to review, the appropriateness of a larger structure in relation to the principal dwelling on, that subject property or in the surrounding area. But it is the goal through these amendments to ensure that, there's still restrictions in place. So this isn't going to become, every single property in the township is now going to have, 2 separate houses, or, ensuring that there is still restriction and some kind of checks and balances on the intensification that could potentially happen on these parcels. So we are still recommending that 50% provision be maintained for the detached structures. But in terms of units that are internal to a dwelling, we've removed that 50% restriction, and that's now up to 2,000 square feet. So there's no cap on the principal unit area for internal units.
Well, I'm going to turn this over to other members of council, but going before committee of adjustment, this to ask for a bigger outbuilding is something we've been dealing with for years. And the requests are more frequent. And as I said, it's something we're apparently going to try to fix today in this very meeting. And now it looks to me like we're taking a step back. We're going to put ourselves in exactly the same situation where we're going to have all kinds of committee of adjustment requests coming forward for a bigger secondary unit. And I'm really questioning whether we're on the right track here. Yes, I got Pat's hand first and then Kate.
Well, maybe Kate should go first in case she says something that's relevant to what I'm thinking.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask through you, Mayor Kane, if Kelsey could just review the intent of the legislation, more homes and more choice, which leads us to the OPA that we've brought forward.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I may defer to my colleague Mike on this, but I can kind of get started. The intent is to allow intensification of existing properties. You know, the intent is to allow up to 3 units on a property, one within a principal dwelling and one external to it in a separate structure. But it's intended that there still be restrictions and that it is appropriate intensification and appropriate growth. So that's why we are recommending the provisions that we are. So I don't know if Mike has anything else to add at this point.
Good afternoon, Council. I won't add much other than just to support what Kelsey has just said. Each municipality that's been working on implementing this broad brushed permission from the province is slightly unique. You know, in your case, you're dealing with primarily private services and not city water and city septic, except for, you know, one occurrence of municipal water. So that's, you know, to back up what Kelsey said, exactly why it's not just an outright blanket provision that it's allowed. It's why there's provisions related to parking and you know, septic, building heights, all the rest. And that's why we've landed where we are, even though on the surface it might have this appearance like it's broad brush allowed across the board. Hope that assists.
Okay, Pat and then Scott.
Yeah, I have the same concern that the mayor raised about once if we have it the way it is right now, because we do have quite a few houses that are, you know, 1,500 square feet. If it could end up with a large number coming for a minor variance. And when I was thinking about sort of what it is that matters to me about all this, I was thinking on a smaller lot, I completely understand that you don't want 2 dominant houses. But if you're talking on farmland, the original house may be fairly small, and the goal may actually be to build a bigger house that actually becomes the new primary house, and the house that was the old house is then the subordinate house. And that can't even happen with the way we have it right now without it again coming to be a minor variance. So to my mind, rather than it be about directly related to the size of the house, it should be more related to the size of the lot, with either a maximum size or a percentage size related to that. But if you've got a 2,000 square foot house on a 1 acre lot, and then somebody else wants to build a 2,000 square foot house, that's still going to look pretty crazy, assuming that they can do the septic. Like I said, for me, it's more about the agricultural lots where I think that this is of importance.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Scott, you had your hand up as well.
Thank you, Bill. I guess my question goes to Kelsey or Mike. In the situation that Councilmember McCord has just described, I'm going to follow along. And that is existing lot, existing residential unit. And the applicant or property owner wishes to have the existing unit become the secondary residential unit. If in fact that owner or applicant were to double the size of that unit and say, here's my new existing principal, would that be permitted?
I can try to tackle that first. To me, items like this where you're dealing with hypotheticals and you're trying to deal with situations, I really think this could lie with your building official. I think that in the case where you have this example of a small farm, let's call it a 800 square foot or a 1,200 square foot bungalow, and it's decided that that's going to be the secondary dwelling and a new larger one is going to be built, the principle is the same. You're ending up with a more dominant house over the secondary house. And I believe the discretion could be left with your building official to determine if the intent of the policy is met. We're certainly not trying to prevent people from doing that exact situation. So on the ag lots in particular, to the point, you might have some older farms where multi-generations are starting to live together, and that's going to warrant some larger houses in some situations. So I don't see a problem with the way the policy is written to allow that from happening.
Thank you, Michael. Follow-up question in relationship to the Planning Act process. We're going to have, in my mind, a different volume of applications for a secondary residential unit in comparison to our request for applications for accessory buildings. And therefore, then, even though they share that same 50% component up until today, I don't see the number of applications being anywhere close for the residentials as compared to the secondary, or compared to the storage buildings. And therefore, for me, it's very different. And I can understand that our 50% that's drafted in this for our residential units is with the intent of having one residential unit, secondary and subordinate in size, and maybe even usage compared to the principal. So to be honest with you, my comment is I'm supportive of the draft, or supportive of the document the way it's presented.
Mark's going to weigh in.
Just a question, and to alleviate some of what Bill and Pat's concerns are, dealing with could we put a minimum in there perhaps of 1,000 square foot rather than having nothing in there, so that at least somebody would have the ability to build at least 1,000 square foot additional home, rather than, as Bill's mentioned, you could be down to 600 or 500 or 800. I mean, I don't want to see those small little tiny places being built. I mean, I think 1,000 square foot is probably sufficient for most people, especially older couples that are looking for a secondary home. So it's just a suggestion, maybe perhaps, or maybe I would get a comment from you, Kelsey, to what your thoughts would be if we added that in there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I see Sandra's hand raised, so I might see if she wants to address this first.
Thank you, if I may, Mr. Mayor. To Councillor Lovshan's comment about 1,000 square feet, I do support a minimum size. However, I must remind council that there are a number of primary residential units out there that are currently under 1,000 square feet. They could be within the 800 square foot mark. So to all of a sudden, and this is to Mr. Gaudette's point, because if you've got an 850 house, then you're allowed 425 and you can't even turn around in that. But to say that 1,000 is going to be the new minimum, I don't think that's going to be quite where we want to go. I think some of the details of the zoning bylaw can still be ironed out through the process here, because should council adopt the official plan amendment, that has to go to the county for approval. And until the OP is approved, the zoning bylaw can't be fully put in place, because it must correspond with the OP. So some of these nitty gritty details can still be ironed out through the next few months.
Pat, did I see your hand again? You're muted, Pat.
I like the way Mark's thinking was going, but I also understand what Sandra was saying. So I'd still like to see a minimum in there at this point, just so we don't get stuck with the 50% mark. I thought that our actual minimum for current building was even under 1,000 square feet. Is it not, Sandra?
That's correct.
So, yeah, it's like 9 something, I think. So first of all, you don't want to have that the minimum is more than what we're saying a regular house to be. That doesn't make sense. So we should at least make it match that. And I think that we could also say, okay, so my thinking went, if the house is smaller than 1,000 square feet, which is really a reasonable size, you'd be in that same situation Michael talked about, where you may end up saying that the new building is the primary dwelling, and that could be to the discretion of the building department, if I understood you correctly, Michael. So I don't think that that is a huge problem, but I wanted to make sure that even though Mark was saying, well, he doesn't like the idea of something really small, if we had somebody who wanted to build one of those tiny houses as their second house, that would have to come through for minor variance in that case, which I think that would be a fairly small number of people who wanted to go for that. And I feel like that would be the way I would prefer to go.
So your hand again, Scott.
It seems on so many topics lately, I'm the odd person out, and I'm going to be here again today. I believe when we go back to the legislation, I believe the intent was to provide additional housing, economical housing. We've had presentations to our council about affordable housing. If we were to look at, and for easy math for me, if we were to look at 1,000 square foot house minimum at $200 a square foot, which I know is low today, you're looking at $200,000. More realistically, $250 a square foot, there's $250,000. And when it comes right down to it, it's probably $300,000. Well, I had a pretty good job and I consider myself a pretty good pension, but if I find myself being a single individual in the future, I personally don't think I'm going to be able to get my pension to carry a 300,000 square foot house cost and maintenance on it. And everybody in this audience knows exactly where I worked and what my pension might be. And some people's out there are a whole lot worse than mine. I don't think a $300,000 or $200,000 house with 1,000 square foot minimum is reasonable for a bachelorette, if I can use that word, apartment. And that's what some of these are going to be. These units that's above the double car garage or alongside the double car garage or alongside the principal house only need to be 500 square feet with a single person living in them. So I do not support the idea of 1,000 square foot minimum from an affordable house perspective.
Back to you, Pat. You have to come off mute, Pat.
I'm talking, nobody's listening. So then is the better option to go to a maximum? You don't want, whoever was saying the 4,000 square foot home is a 2,000 square foot additional home. Is there okay, you know what, we could go up to 1,500 square feet, but if they want a 500 tiny home, then they're automatically covered. I also don't know how much time, if this is something we're going to be able to hash out in this time period, because it sounds like we all have different ideas, even though we thought we knew what we wanted when this all started.
Okay. First of all, I think we might be surprised how many applications we get for secondary residences. I don't believe that we're looking at some small number. And the prices that were mentioned, that lots on the street are selling for $300,000. That's just the property. And that's one of the big stopping points for people building homes. If they can get a property with their parents or grandparents or whatever for nothing, that's going to make the house much more realistic for them to build. And we have kicked this 50% size of the main house around for years now. And we finally are going to solve that problem today by tying it to the size of the lot. Why don't we do the same thing with the secondary residence? And make it up to a maximum of whatever percentage of the house, but 50%, that 50% number is going to be a thorn in the side of this council and future councils until you fix it. It's like we're fixing the outbuildings today. Yes, Pat?
So do you mean like lot compared to total footprint of those
Yeah.
two buildings?
Exactly what we're doing with exactly what we're bringing forward with outbuildings today.
That to me is simple and wonderful. That would solve where my problems lie.
It's still a percentage of the, I mean, it's not going to allow any of the outbuildings to be bigger than the original residence. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm sorry, Bill, if I heard you correctly, I'm not so sure that I agree with your comment. Depending on the percentage of lot coverage you choose for these secondary residential units, and considering the original house was built potentially with a minimum square footage size requirement in the zoning document, I think our staff would be able to generate many examples where the second residential unit could become larger than the primary, again, without the flipping aspect.
Can somebody clarify? We had two examples in today's agenda package with regards to outbuildings. Can anyone on staff clarify that using tying it into the percentage of the lot could result in a secondary residence being bigger than the original house? Yes, Sandra.
Without any specific examples, I can definitely see that it is a distinct possibility, because there are lots out there, 1 acre, 2 acre in size with small dwellings now. And if we tie the accessory subordinate dwelling unit to lot coverage, it could easily be bigger than the existing house.
Bill, can I give you an example? Sorry, I can't find my hand button.
That's okay, Tim, go ahead.
So just looking at this, if you want to run with lot coverage, I'll pick on just a 5 acre lot. You would then be allowing, if we used our 5% lot coverage rule for an accessory dwelling unit, you'd be getting close to a 10,000 square foot accessory dwelling unit, which it doesn't work with the intent of the Planning Act change. So because our lot sizes are so different, that's why we were working with the 50% rule, but it's different than the meeting or the component that we're talking about for accessories later on. This is just talking about a secondary unit and knowing that we can approve something, as Pat had mentioned, and Scott as well, where we're flipping what the principal dwelling is. The intent of the Planning Act is that there is one accessory unit smaller than the principal unit. So I know we can work at it through the building department on making it work for everybody, including Mr. Gadet. But I don't think we should be opening the door to a lot coverage percentage for a dwelling unit just based on our sizes of lots.
Okay, thanks,
I don't know if
Tim.
that cleared the air. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. It just does explain some things. So we've kicked this around. Are we going to leave it at the 50%? I'm personally against it, but it's the will of council, not one person. Yes, Mark.
I'm with you, Bill. I mean, I could just see, like, we have people coming forward with minor variances now. I can see that happening again. And what's going to be a minor variance? I mean, if they have 1,000 square foot and they home now and they come in for a minor variance so they could add another home onto their property that's 1,000 square foot, is that going to be considered a minor variance? I mean, if the lot supports it, perhaps, but
We've already been forced into ridiculous situations with outbuildings where we've been asked for minor variances where the thing is 3 times the size it's supposed to be by the bylaw. I mean, we don't want to get ourselves in those messes again.
Absolutely right. I'm with you 100%. So I'm still for saying that if you put a minimum in there, it doesn't have to be a minimum. If you put a person, if they have a 1,000 square foot home now, and they wish to, if they have room within the property, and they wish to build another home within that property, they could go to a maximum of 1,000 square foot. They don't have to, but that would be if there's some wording we could use to say that they can, then fine. If somebody has a 1,500 square foot home and they wish to go to 1,000 square foot, that would be fine also. But if they only want to go to 750 or they want to go to 500, as Scott suggested, which would be less money and maybe all they need, that would be fine too. But I think there has to be a way of getting it so that that home could be up to 1,000 square foot or whatever that number is, as Pat's laid out, it may be 900 and something. But that's my opinion anyway, that there should be some flexibility there that they can do that as long as the lot will handle it. And
I saw Sandra digging. I didn't know she was able to find. I thought when Pat talked about the minimum size, Sandra, I thought you were off on a search that you
Yes,
were
I
maybe trying to
was.
find that number. Did you find that number?
I did. The zoning bylaw does, I think it's the UR1 zone, a minimum gross floor area of a house is 958 square feet. That's one of the smallest, if not the smallest we have in the zoning bylaw. That excludes garden suites, of course, which are another animal altogether and even smaller. So if your existing house is 958, 960, and you're allowed 50% of that, again, I don't think you can turn around in something like that. To Mr. Gaudette's point, I understand the 50% rule. I understand not wanting the accessory unit, which is supposed to be subordinate to the principal unit by definition. You don't want it to be bigger than, you don't want it to be as big, but maybe there should be a minimum. Maybe the 50% rule should be 75. But again, I do believe that these nitty gritty details can still be ironed out. I don't think that the zoning bylaw is only being put forward for 2 readings today. It's not going forward for 3rd reading. So these details can still be ironed out in the next couple of months.
So I saw a head shake when you mentioned 75. Is that the thinking that you're having, Larry?
Yeah, I think 75% is a good rationale because you can either go up or down from that. So you're not going to be getting a 4,000 square foot house if you're just building a 1,000 square foot house, or you have a 1,000 square foot house. So the 75% seems to make sense to me.
Okay, Scott.
Question for our consultants. This conversation has been started as a result of an OPA debate, as a result of an forgive me, it was a long night. As a result of an OPA 12, is that correct? And why do we need to be discussing the actual percentages or those components that's going to be in the zoning document that's only to get 1st and 2nd reading? Can we not pass our OPA today and get it moving forward and provide an opportunity for staff to look at tweaking the zoning bylaw specifics?
Through you, Mayor Kane, I'm happy to respond to that. So I think first and foremost, based on what I'm hearing, that what has been proposed by the deputy mayor is exactly what you need to do. You can adopt the official plan amendment so that it gets on for approval with the county. And, if the percentage is something that staff and council feel is not going to be easy to implement and going to result in a lot of variances, this might be a case where you want to implement minimum and maximums. The whole idea of these policies is to provide affordable housing options And in a rural municipality or a dominantly rural municipality like yours, you are talking about legitimately having families moving back together for the most part. You're not going to be accommodating student housing per se, like we do in Kingston, where people latch on to this as income property. But keep in mind, the income property is also a way to make houses affordable. so you know, that helps as well. So all that to say, you know, if you want to go away from the percentages with the guise of the fact that we want this to be affordable housing, there probably should be a minimum and a maximum set. And then in the few occasions where, you know, somebody does want to come in and build a 2,000 square foot secondary dwelling, then you deal with that through a minor variance and you weigh whether it's appropriate or not. But what we're trying to do with your policies is accommodate the broadest range and try to limit those variances. So we could certainly switch away, get the official plan done, and, you know, have staff do some more analysis. We can work with staff and tweak that further if that's what's necessary.
Thank you, Michael. So what I'm hearing is that we can put this on the back burner and let staff, you know, mull it over, come up with some ideas. And by us moving this forward today, this is not closure because it hasn't had third reading. And that will give all of us an opportunity to come up with some more realistic idea, perhaps, than the 50%. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes. So let's move forward then. With the caveat that we are expecting staff to look at this so that when this does come forward for third reading, we might have some more viable solution, hopefully, to the problem that at least 3 of us think we have, if not 4. So that being said, we have a recommendation to council that we can move forward with. That report CD 2021-17 be received. 2, that council adopt OPA number 12 by bylaw 2021-49 to amend and introduce policies related to additional residential units and direct staff to forward the amendment to the county of Northumberland for approval. And 3, that council adopt ZBA-04-21 by bylaw 2021-50 related to the introduction of additional residential unit provisions as it appears to be in keeping with good planning principles. Do we need a motion to that effect? Thank you, Larry, and seconded by Mark. Hopefully without further discussion, all in favor?
Bill, we're missing Scott. At least I am. I don't know the screen. I just let you be aware.
See, I have mysterious ways of getting rid of troublemakers that you didn't know about. Yes, Larry, just go off mute.
Can I just clarify something? There was one of the gentlemen, I think his name was Brian. He mentioned Airbnbs, and I've seen this before in some of our reports. That's a brand name and not a description of a property or use of a property.
That's correct.
So maybe we better make sure we don't use that brand name in any descriptions of our zoning bylaws. That's my point, Mr. Mayor.
You're absolutely right, Mr. Williamson, Councilor Williamson. That was in Mr. Lowe's personal letter to council. So that's why it was read. And it's certainly not the intent of this official plan amendment or zoning bylaw to have these accessory units be used for bed and breakfast. They are to be full-time, permanent residential units. They are not to be turned into a hotel. That's not the intent of this bylaw.
Or just back up to that short-term rentals.
Well, that's something that's going to have to come forward in a housekeeping bylaw. We're going to have to define that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Pat.
Just another small clarification for me. The recommendation as you read it, we're adopting OPA 12, but the second part, adopting the zoning bylaw, that one we're only doing first and second reading. Is that where we ended up? That was my understanding.
That's what I understood.
So if we read it that way here, does that say that we're going to do all 3 readings? That doesn't mean that.
I hope not. That's not what I was led to believe.
That's what I was trying to check. That's all.
Mayor Kane,
Yes.
there's corresponding bylaws. There's one for the OPA and there's one for the zoning bylaw, and that's when you'll give your readings.
Okay, thank you. Is Emily trying to do anything about contacting Scott? Oh, Arthur, I'm sorry, you're doing it. Okay. Maybe we can just pause for a minute or two and see. We did have a motion on the floor and we did attempt to vote, but I don't think we actually got that vote in, so.
Through Mayor Kane, he's just trying to sign back in via telephone at this point, and we should be able to do it shortly. So if you just give us one moment.
If we had 4 hands, we could pass that with a majority vote. Do we have? Yeah, we do. So can we conclude that at least and say that that motion is carried? We'll inform Scott as what he was talking about before he left has gone forward. And when he comes back, we'll move to 7.3. I'd like to thank the members of Foden who are with us today. Michael and Kelsey, you got involved in a bit of a hornet's nest. I'm sorry. But, at least we have some council members who are passionate about trying to get it right. So it's, we do drag on sometimes, but I'd like to thank you for your help today.
Thank you, Mayor Kane. We're happy to continue to help you get through this.
Deputy Mayor Jibb, are you there?
I am.
Excellent.
Okay, welcome back, Scott.
Thank you. My apologies. I do not know what happened, and I probably won't until somebody else gets home.
Well, it was mentioned that when you disagree with the mayor, strange things can happen. So,
Well,
we did pass. I didn't realize you were gone until I took the motion to proceed with the passing of the official plan and so on. First, second, it will not be all 3 readings as you put forward. So that allowed us to move, and we did have 4 hands. So I called out a pass. If you'd like to have your vote.
well, I support that, Bill.
Okay, I just wanted to know if you were in opposition that you'd make sure you got your vote in. That's all. So
No,
we can.
I'm in support.
Okay, good. Thank you. So we're going to move to 7.3, ZBA 06/20, the zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA-06/20 Bowman and Lawson. That's 8176 Jib Road, Camborne. I'm going to ask if there's anyone here in support of this amendment. Seeing none or hearing none. Oh, I'm sorry, I see Larry Bowman is on. That's the applicant. I recognize that you're here, Larry. Do you have anything to add to the application?
No, not this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who's opposed to the application? I don't see anyone else coming online. Anyone seeking clarification? Again, I see no one. Sandra, do you want to have input to this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council and yourself. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act, and I'll give a brief synopsis of my staff report. It is available on our website should anybody wish to review the whole document. You have asked for input from the public. I'd just like to remind the public with respect to this application, and the previous application for official plan amendment and zoning amendment for accessory residential units. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, you must ask for that in writing, and you can send me an email to that effect, or you can drop a letter off in our drop box on the left-hand side of the front door of the main building. With respect to this particular application, B0620, the Bowmans and Lawsons came forward last fall with a consent application for a new lot creation that was given provisional consent by the Committee of Adjustment, subject to numerous conditions, one of them being rezoning the property for the appropriate residential use rather than the agricultural
Our
zone.
computer shut down because of the $50 overreach.
Rezoning the property for residential use rather than the agricultural zone that it currently sits in. And it's recommended that the proposal does go forward because it does appear to be in keeping with the planning governing documents of the provincial policy statement, township official plan, and the township zoning bylaw. With respect to comments received from outside agencies. Sorry, I lost my page. No objections from Public Works or Trans Northern Pipelines or the Kawartha District School Board. The County of Northumberland was in support, as well as the building department. Since authoring the report, I have received a letter from the Conservation Authority. They have no objection to the zoning bylaw amendment, and the property is regulated by the Conservation Authority, and therefore development proposed will require permit from the authority. In conclusion, staff does support this proposal, and a bylaw has been prepared for your consideration later on in the regular portion of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Sandra. Turn it over. Any questions from council? Obviously, Scott, I can't see you, so you're just going to have to speak up when you want to speak. So I see none. So it's recommended the council, the Corporation Township of Hamilton act as follows: that council receive report zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 06/20, that members of the public be heard as requested, and that the proposed bylaw amendment be adopted. A mover, please. Thanks, Larry. Seconder. Scott, thank you. All in favor? Give us a yay, Scott.
Yay.
Or a nay. Thank you. That motion is carried. We're on to 7.4, which is an application for cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes under section 357, subsection 1, part D1 of the Municipal Act, report T20-26. And this is application WO 2021-06. Effective date was the 11th of April 2021 to December 31, 2021. The roll number is there: 1419 000 100 29600, and it is located at 7624 Bamsey Drive. The reason for this application is due to a fire at the house, and the house was damaged. Is there anyone here in support of the application? Anyone here opposed to the application? Is there anyone seeking clarification? Did you have some input, Larry? No. Okay, thank you. All right. We're moving on to 7.5, application for cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes under section 357, subsection 1, part D1 of the Municipal Act. This is report T2021-27. The effective date, January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. The roll number is there also: 1419 000 060 20 21 0 0000. And that location of that property is 8405 Donaldson Road, Reason for the application, a gross or manifest error made by impact concerning the lot size of the property. Anyone here in support? Anyone opposed? Anyone seeking clarification? I don't see anything on my screen, so we'll move to 7.6, application for cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes under section 357, subsection 1, part D1 of the Municipal Act. This is report T 2021-24, application WO 2021-08, effective date January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. And the roll number is 1419 000 030 23903. Location 1301 Ontario Street. Reason for the application is that under the Assessment Act, Section 3, subsection 1, Part 7.1, nonprofit hospices, where land that is used by a nonprofit hospice to provide end-of-life care for individuals with a terminal illness are exempt from taxation. The care must be provided either on-site or by serving as an administrative center for the provision of such care in the individual's home. Anyone here in support? Or in opposition? Or seeking clarification? Again, I don't see any, and we're at 7.7, another application for cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes. Under section 357, subsection 1, part D1 of the Municipal Act, this is report T 2021-25. Its effective date, its application WO 2021-09. Effective date is January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. Property roll 1419 000 090 30800. And it is located at 5248 King Road 300. Reason for the application, a removal of 2 fishing cabins and no buildings remain on the property. Anyone here in support? Or in opposition? Or seeking clarification? Hearing and seeing no one, we'll move forward then to 7.8. And this is a motion to rise from public meeting and reconvene to regular council. It's recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamlin acts as follows. The council rise from public meeting under sections 22 and 34 of the Planning Act and or section 357 of the Municipal Act and reconvene to a regular council meeting at 2:40 p.m. on September 21st, 2021. Moved by Larry, seconded by Mark. All in favor?
Yay.
Thank you, Scott. That's carried. Section 8, planning bylaws. 8.1. Bylaw 2021-44, read the amendment to bylaw 2001-58 on Jib Road. It's recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamlin acts as follows. The bylaw number 2021-44 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2001-58 as amended, the township of Hamilton land use control bylaw relating to zoning bylaw application ZBA 06/20
Computer shut down.
for 8176
Computer shut down because of
Road,
the
Jib Road.
power limit.
We give a first, second reading this 21st day of September
I'm in the middle of a Zoom
2021.
meeting.
Have a mover, please. Thank you, Pat. Seconded by Larry. Have I omitted something, Sandra?
This was intended to have all 3 readings, Mr. Mayor.
It just says first and second. That's why I stumbled.
Yes, and I just read that now at the same time, but it was my intent that this bylaw for the Bowmans have all 3 readings.
Okay, thank you. I almost spit that out and then I realized it wasn't there and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So thanks for jumping in. So we are, if I can go back, then this is a first, second, and third reading. So the motion still stands. Was it Pat? It was Larry. Motion still stands. Okay, so the mover is Larry, seconder is Pat. Is that correct? Yes, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yay.
That's carried. 8.2, bylaw 2021-43, a zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 09-21. This is Taylor. It's recommended that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows: that bylaw 2021-43 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2001-58 as amended, the application ZBA 09-21 for 9448 Stevenson Road, Harwood, be given first, second, and third reading, and finally passed this 21st day of September 2021. Moved by Pat, seconded by Mark. Is there a question there, Pat?
Yeah, and maybe I'm way wrong, but don't these normally have a public meeting ahead of this? And did we have a public meeting for this our previous months? Because I'm like, this is familiar to me, but then I thought usually it's just like it's the same day like the Jib one was. But I just wanted to double check that we actually had the public meeting. I'm good.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if you would like, we did have the public meeting in July, and it was noted at that time that I didn't have all the information available to me to write the bylaw. So the public meeting went ahead, and the bylaw is now being brought forward today.
I think Pat's good with that. No further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Yay.
Thanks, Scott. 8.3, additional residential units, 2021-49, OPA number 12. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows: the bylaw 2021-49 being a bylaw to pass pursuant sections 17 and 21 in the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, to adopt amendment number 12 to the official plan of the Township of Hamilton 2, and to direct the clerk to apply for OPA number 12 approval from Northumberland County, and to give notice under section 17 subsection 23 to give first, second, and I thought this was only going to be first and second reading.
Mayor Kane,
Yes.
we're looking for 3 readings on the official plan amendment. 2 readings on the
Okay.
accompanying associated zoning bylaw.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
First, second, and third reading, and finally passed this 21st day of September 2021. All in favor? Oh, sorry, we got
Yay.
movers Pat, seconded by Larry. All in favor?
Yay.
And that's carried. Thanks, Scott. I hope Daphne's paying attention, Kate, to how quickly you're coming to my rescue. 8.4, bylaw 2021-50, the zoning bylaw amendment, which additional residential units. This is 2021-50 ZBA 04-21. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows: that bylaw 2021-50 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2001-58 as amended, related to additional residential unit provisions, be given first and second reading this 21st day of September 2021. Moved by Larry, seconded by Mark. All in favor?
Yay.
And that's also carried. We're at section 9, the regular council meeting of 20 July 2021. It's recommended that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows: that the minutes of the July 20th, 2021 regular council meeting be adopted as presented. Have a mover, please. Thanks, Pat. Seconded by Larry. Any discussion on those minutes? Okay, there are some things brought forward from it. If there's nothing else from council, then I'll ask for a motion to pass those minutes. That's carried. We had the motion, I'm sorry, vote is carried. Thank you. And we are now at business arising, and that's 10.1, CD 2021-17, the transfer and assumption of Clark McKinley Road. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows: the council receives report CD 2021-17, a transfer and assumption of Clark McKinley Road for information, and that a bylaw be passed authorizing the mayor and the clerk to sign and execute a cost sharing agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton and Barry, Elizabeth, Chris, and Cheryl McKinley for survey, transfer, registration, and assumption of Clark McKinley Road. Moved by Pat. Seconded by Larry. Thank you. Any discussion? So I'll call the question in. All in favor?
Yay.
Thank you. That's carried. 11.2, Environment and Climate Change Advisory Committee. The meeting of 26 July 2021. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The minutes of the Environment and Climate Change Advisory Committee meeting held on July 26, 2021 be received for information. We have a mover, please. Thanks, Larry. Seconded by Mark. Thanks. Any discussion? Yes, Larry?
I'd just like to congratulate that committee for doing such a great job. They're moving a lot of initiatives forward, and they're reasonable and accomplishable. And I hopefully that our staff can follow through with a lot of those. And I just wanted to congratulate them on such a great job.
Yeah, I agree with you, Larry. I got the same impression when I was reading all the recommendations. I'm thinking, boy, these guys are really, they're really digging in. I agree with you 100%. Was one, they had an example of several ways of, saving energy. And one that I was just really informed of and didn't understand the other day was at a Zoom meeting like this, most of the power is being taken up by those of us who are on screen. And that by simply going to, take the video off and staying in the meeting with your name up instead of with your picture up requires less than 50% of the energy that's required to go to the Zoom meeting. So, I mean, obviously, I don't want anybody who's on the screen now to disappear on me, but it's nice to note that we have already on screen our staff members who are not sharing their picture because they are, that's why they're saving energy. So good for you guys.
Bill, do I get extra marks here today for this?
You got something to make up for, Scott? We've had a motion and we've had a conversation. I don't believe we've had a vote. We're all in favor of accepting. That's carried. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, according
Yes.
to the agenda, I think maybe you skipped the ad hoc
Ad
water.
hoc committee, I sure have. Thank you. I slipped my screen too quickly forward. Thanks, Pat, for catching up.
I try.
Got a girl. So 11.1, the Ad hoc Water Advisory Committee, 22nd of July, 2021. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The minutes of the Ad hoc Water Committee meeting held on July 22nd, 2021 be received for information.
I'll move that, Bill.
Thank you. And seconded by Pat. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yay.
That's carried. 11.3, Joint Animal Control Municipal Services Board, minutes of 2021-07-28, and minutes of 12th of August, 2021. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The minutes of the regular and special Joint Animal Control Service Board meetings held on July 28th and August 12th of 2021 be received. We have a mover, that's Larry, and a seconder, it's Pat again. Any discussion or questions? All right, all in favor of the minutes being passed, and that's carried. The West Northumberland Physicians Recruitment Committee, 2021 annual report and their minutes of July 20th, 21. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. That the West Northumberland Physicians Recruitment Committee's 2021 annual report and July 20th, 2021 meeting minutes be received. Do we have a mover? Thanks, Larry. The seconder is Mark. Larry, is there anything you'd like to speak on regarding this? I know you're going through a major change. You're going to change the entire structure. Can you give us the Coles Notes version of what's happening?
Right. Okay. Well, we're moving forward from a committee to a board. And I have submitted the draft amendment and documents from the town of Cobourg to the clerk. Basically, what it means is that we're moving from a committee to a board, and the town of Cobourg will be taking on all the administrative duties for the board, which means they will be taking all the secretarial and accounting procedures. This board is doing, or this committee right now is doing an excellent job. Maria Gomez has been very positive about the way we're moving. We're getting doctors to replace retired doctors. And it's really encouraging to see how this is working. I'm going to ask that we join with their Service Monkey, or what do you call it, Survey Monkey. We're trying to get a number of the people in our different communities that still need doctors. And so they've put together a Survey Monkey survey that we need to put on our website and Facebook so that people can link to it and answer that. It's based on postal code, and it will really help us out in trying to get numbers of those people who still need doctors. And out there, if anybody's listening and they need a doctor, you can go to Healthcare Connect and put your name in for a doctor. It is a process, and they'll explain it all to you. There will be a slight increase in the budget, but that will be discussed at a later time. But other than that, that's where we're doing. And so we're quite encouraged by that we're moving from committee to a board.
Could you arrange some connection with Emily? Larry?
Yeah, I'm doing
connection
that.
with that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We're doing that.
Great. Yeah, and again, I couldn't agree with you more. I've said many times over, this is the best spent money, that we do. And when you look at the accomplishments that were delivered to us in today's package, it's amazing. Having spent some time in with that group, I can verify that the fight for doctors is vicious out there. It is vicious. The competition is unbelievable from municipalities. There's all kinds of people throwing money around, and yet this group continues to deliver without sending out $50,000 and $75,000 and $100,000 bonus packages to bring in doctors. They sell this community, and they just are doing a real knockdown job. And I'd be happy if you share that with your group, Larry. I'm really impressed by it for sure.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay. So we've had the motion. We just need a vote. All in favor?
Yay.
That's carried. 12 is Public Works and Infrastructure. We're at 12.1, PW 2021-05. RFP number PW 2021-05, the Stormwater Master Plan. It's recommended that the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The Council receives report PW 2021-05 for information, and RFP number PW 2021-05, the Stormwater Master Plan for information. And further, the Council authorized the Mayor and Treasurer to reward RFP number PW 2021-05 Stormwater Master Plan at a value of $88,710.80 plus HST to Civica Infrastructure, Inc., and that the Mayor and Treasurer be authorized to undertake all things necessary to execute the contract for work. We get a motion, then we can ask if there's any input here. Yes, Larry, thank you. And a seconder. Thanks, Pat. Nazrat, did you have any input for this for us that we need? Or any member of staff?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, through you, Mr. Mayor, I will ask Lucas Kelly, our Manager of Public Work, to speak to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, members of council. I do not have any further information to add in the report. We did, I think it's all there. We did review as well as GRCA, and the recommendation is as follows.
Okay, thanks, Lucas. And obviously we got all the material in our package, so we've been over it and realized that this comes in slightly under budget, which is great. Any other input from members of council? So I'll call the question. All in favor?
Yay.
Thank you. That's carried. 12.2, PW 2021-06, the Harwood drainage at the Harwood Dock and the Stony Pier Parquet. It's recommended the Council of Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report PWI 2021-06, the Harwood drainage at the Harwood Dock and Stony Pier Parquet for information. I'll get this on the floor, please. Moved by Pat, seconded by Mark. Any discussion or staff input?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. No, I think all the information is there. I did take some pictures to be included in the report. Staff did regrade the Harwood Dock area as per that picture there. Sorry for, I guess, the scale and imagery is with being a 8.5 by 11, but then I also took some photos of the Stony Pier parquet and the drainage outlet that was designed. That's all in information that's in the report.
Right, thank you, Lucas. So that drainage bit at the very bottom of the parquet, I mean, that's really steep. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do there.
I mean, that was designed, and the GRCA and the MNRF did approve that. We could approach the GRCA and the ministry to get a permit to work within the proximity of the water. I'm really highly doubt that we would ever get to it this year, just for the permitting and the approval sake, but we could consider doing it, getting the permits and approvals in place this fall and working on it next year.
What would you do though? What's the solution, Lucas?
We would probably just install the geotextile cloth and the rip wrap, or that 6-inch or 8-inch clear stone right to the water's edge.
Okay, thank you. So if that's going to happen, obviously going to be a budget item.
Correct, yes.
Yes, Larry.
I know the photo was elongated, but it did look like a really dangerous way to get down to the water's edge. I would think if we're going to continue to have this operate as a park, which it is considered a park, but it's not under it. I think the Parks and Rec cut the grass, but they don't do anything more down to the water. And I know it's being used by a lot of locals in turn. They use it instead of the Harwood Dock. We should look at doing some way of building a steps down to the water if we're going to keep it open. Or as you indicated in your report, to put up a sign that use at your own risk, because there is some liability issues that I can foresee, and I have for a while. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'm sure Lucas can consider that, but if we're obviously looking at a long-range plan now for next year, so we've got time for input. Anything else from members of council?
Bill?
Yes.
Obviously I'm at a real disadvantage here without photographs and without the report or anything in front of me, but it was reported to us back in July, and we felt that there was an unsafe component there. Is that unsafe component still present, or have we done something to correct that recently?
Well, Larry certainly thinks it's still there. I'll defer to staff. I think at the very least, the idea of putting up the use at the own risk sign, I mean, that doesn't stop somebody from getting hurt, but maybe it at least covers our liability a little bit. Arthur?
I defer also to Councillor McCord. I think she was going to say something. I'd be happy to say something as well.
I was just going to make a quick comment that the use at your own risk concerns me a certain amount, knowing how much it is actually used. So, like, the public is used to using it. The use at own risk kind of covers our liability, sort of, but it doesn't feel proper to me.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kane. You can see from the pictures, the one portion of it was the designed engineered sort of spillway section, and the other is an informal path where people have, of whatever numbers, as Councillor McCord has said, a number of people who have either used it or infrequently use it to go down to get towards the water, closer to the water. We will, at a minimum, at least sign it to indicate that it's use at own risk. And then the questions will come back to budget. Do you want stairs, steps, a rope, a chain to assist people from going into that area? Or is it something more formal in the way of either stone or, again, wooden steps down? Or the other one is to sort of further indicate that it's a sort of an unsafe area not to be used. So we'll come back with that kind of information, allow council to decide, and certainly as part of the budget process.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Arthur. So if there's no further discussion, we do have a motion on the floor to receive. All in favor? That's carried. 12.3 WTR 2021-004, update on the Cameron Well 1A emergency repair. It's recommended the council, the corporation, the township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report WTR 2021-004 for information. Get us on the floor, please.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
Have
Yes,
we
yes.
lost Deputy Mayor Jib again?
Oh my goodness. Well, it appears so.
Hey,
He's back.
There he is.
I can see everyone on the screen, but except for myself here.
Can you also hear us, Scott?
He's muted.
He's muted, but that wouldn't stop from hearing us.
No, he looked,
I'd like to be
Oh,
heard.
there you are.
whether I'm at a distance or not. Thank you.
Welcome back in your entirety.
Everyone, sorry for the difficulty.
We were just about to get the motion to receive the report on the emergency repairs at Cameron Well on the floor. We need a mover and a seconder. Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Pat. Discussion, or I believe we have Anita with us today. Is there input, Anita, that you'd like to give us beyond the report?
Nothing further unless anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions, anyone? Yes, Larry?
I just want to make it so that everybody out there in the township will understand that we originally budgeted $80,000 for that drainage or that repair to the well, and it came in at $45,000. So we had a $35,000 drainage or saving that we thank the Anita and her team for, and the Treasurer's Department. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there was not an exact budget that was approved. We were given an envelope. At that time, we were estimating $45,000, but the cost is approximately $80,875. So we are over the estimated budget.
Thank you. I thought I was confused. That's the way I read it too. So I was going to make a statement though. When you have that kind of a repair, I mean, it's very difficult to estimate what that cost is going to be. You're talking about specialized equipment, specialized work underground. You know, I don't know what we can do about it. It's too bad for the water users, but at least they've got everything back online, functioning properly. The repairs that were made from what I read through the report are now with stainless steel. So that will hopefully be a big improvement, and the same kind of thing is not going to happen to us hopefully in the future. So, you know, I believe that, you know, what was done was the best that we could do. So anything else from members of staff? Anything else from council? So I'm going to call the question. All in favor of receiving? That is carried. We're at section 13, recs and facilities. There is no reports. 14, corporate, BLDG 2021-04. The building department statistics Q2. It's recommended the council, corporation, township of Hamilton acts as follows. Council receives report BLDG 2021-04, the 2021 building department statistics Q2 for information only. Moved by Larry, seconded by Scott. Tim, do you want to have some input?
Just here to answer any questions.
Okay. Anybody else on council, questions or comments? Hard not to notice it was quite an uptick in activity.
I look forward to showing you Q3.
All right. Wow.
Good
Even
year.
better.
Even better.
Oh, wow. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I understand that there's a an application that's at the office now for like an 18,000 square foot home. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, we do. I believe it's 1,900 square feet. I don't have it in front of me because my colleague Mike has started the review process, but yes, we have another large house that's been submitted for the initial review.
Tim, you changed that to 100 instead of 1,000. I think that's a slip, is it?
Sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to. What did I just mention?
You said 1,900 square feet. Yeah, I think you meant to say 19,000.
That I did. Thank you.
Goodness. So no further discussion then. I'll call the question. All in favor of receiving? And that's carried. Thank you. 14.2, Building 2021-05, the Building Department Policy Exemption Request from Andrew Egan. It's recommended the Council Township of Hamilton and acts as follows. The Council receives report BLDG 2021-05, the Building Department Policy Exemption Request for information, and the Council approves the request from Andrew Egan for the exemption of the Township's policy for 5199 County Road 45 with respect to plumbing permits for a non-residential / accessory building limited to one toilet and one sink. Thanks, Mark. Seconder, Scott. Tim, do you want to take anything on this?
I don't think there's much more to add, Mayor Kane. Just another request for plumbing and an accessory.
It has been discussed in the past. So. Anything from council? So I'm going to call the question and all in favor of this. And that's carried. Thank you. 14.3 PNG 09-2021, a zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 09/21. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation, the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The Council receives report PNG 09/2021, a zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 09/21 Taylor for information, and that bylaw 2021-43 be adopted. Moved by Larry, seconded by Scott. Any discussion? Call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. 14.4 PNG 10-2021, a zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 03/20. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation, the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The Council receives report PNG 10-2021, a zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 03/20 Staples for information. Mover. Thanks, Scott. Seconded by Larry. Any discussion or any input from staff? Okay, sorry, Scott.
I have a request of staff, and that is, once we know the outcome, could it be circulated to the council, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it will be circulated. I do advise that it usually takes 6 to 8 weeks before a ruling comes down.
Okay, thank you for that. No other discussion, then I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 14.5 PNG 11-2021 expense agreement is a zoning bylaw amendment application. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation, the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. That Council receives report PNG 11-2021 and that a bylaw authorizing the execution of the application expense agreement be adopted. Need a mover. That'd be Scott, and seconded by Mark. Thank you. Is there discussion on this? Then I will call the question. All in favor? Again, carried. Thank you. 14.6 T2021-24 applications per section 357 of the Municipal Act for refund of property taxes. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton and acts as follows. The Council receives report T 2021-24 applications per section 357 of the Municipal Act for refund of property taxes. And the council approves the write-off of property taxes for application number WO 2021-08, which is 1301 Ontario Street, in the total amount of $1,016.69 for the 2021 tax year, of which $454.46 is the municipality's portion. Moved by Pat, seconded again by Mark. Any discussion? So all in favor? And thank you, council, that's carried. 14.7, applications per section 357 of Municipal Act for refund of property taxes. This is T 2021-25. It's recommended council of the Clark Township of Hamilton and acts as follows. The council receives report T 2021-25, applications per section 357 of the Municipal Act for refund of property taxes. And the council approves the write-off of property taxes for application number WO 2021-09, which is located at 5248 King Road 300. The total amount of $411.24 for the 2021 tax year, of which $183.83 is the municipality's portion. The mover, please. Thanks, Scott, and seconded by Pat. Any discussion? All in favor? Again, carried. Thank you, council. 4.8, T 2021-26, application for section 357 of the Municipal Act for refund of property taxes. It's recommended the council of the Township of Hamilton and acts as follows. The council receives report T 2021-26, applications for section 357 of the Municipal Act for refund of property taxes, and the council approves the write-off of property taxes for application number WO 2021-06, located at 7624 Bamsey Drive. Total amount of $1,707.23 for the 2021 tax year, which $763.13 is the municipality's portion. Thank you for moving, Larry. The seconder. Thanks, Pat. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's again carried. Thank you. 14.9, T 2021-27, application for section 357 of the Municipal Act for refund of property taxes is recommended. The council of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report T 2021-27, applications for section 357 of the Municipal Act for refund of property taxes. And the council approves the write-off of property taxes for application number WO 2021-07, located at 8405 Donaldson Road, for the total amount of $159.93 for the 2021 tax year, which $71.49 is the municipality's portion. Moved by Mark and seconded by Larry. Discussion? All in favor? Again, carried. We're at section 14.10. T 2021-28 is the 2021 second quarter financial report. Recommended that the council of the corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. Council receives report T 2021-28, the 2021 second quarter financial report for period ending June 30th, 2021 as information. Can a mover put this on the floor, please? I saw Larry's hand and Pat's. Thank you for that. I open it up to input from our treasurer. Thank you, Nazar.
You, Mr. Mayor. Staff is recommending that council receive this report for information. This is second quarter financial report, which covers from January 1st to June 30th of 2021. If you look at the expenditure for the township, this is excluding building and water. It's around 40.8%. We are below that 50% mark for by the end of Q2. And that's because staff has been instructed to constrain their expenditure to the best of their ability. In terms of insurance, I do want to mention that it's going to be slightly over budget this year, simply because when we were doing our 2021 budget, we were very conservative with the budget. We aligned it with actual, but we have seen an increase in insurance rate for 2021. And it's not just us, quite a few municipalities saw that, and it's because overall there's been an increase in number of claims. In terms of revenue, we are noticing a significant decrease in revenue. So we are below budget in terms of revenue for recreation alone. The revenue loss as of Q2, by the end of Q2, is approximately $120,000, and that is due to pandemic, which was expected. In terms of water expenditure is at 44.9%, which is, again, we are trying our best to control our expenditure to the best of our ability. And in terms of revenue, it is at 61.5%, and that is due to timing. If there is any other question, I would be happy to answer.
Open up for members of council. So I don't see any. Quick question for me, Nazir. You said that there been an increase in claims. Has there been an increase in claims by Hamilton Township?
Not Hamilton Township, but the entire other organization. As a result, overall insurance is increasing.
It somehow seems that the people who are putting the increased claims should be the ones who are getting their insurance increased. Correct me if I'm wrong, but why should we be sharing in the claims of other municipalities? Is it all going to work out in the wash when things go bad for us? Is that the thinking? Okay. Nothing else from members of council. I'll call the question then. All in favor of accepting the report? For information, thank you. That's carried. Thank you, Nazir. We're at 1411. T 2021-29. Additional funding for the HVAC replacement capital project. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report T 2021-29, additional funding for the HVAC replacement capital project, and the council approves the additional funding of $7,000 for the HVAC replacement capital project to be funded from recreational facilities reserves. I'll get a motion to get this on the floor. Thank you, Larry. And we have a seconder, Scott. Thank you. Discussion? No, so the information that came with it was pretty much self-explanatory. Costs gone up a slight amount. I guess we just rock and roll with that one. Yes, Larry?
I think the increase in cost primarily came to retrofitting the installation housing. The old housing was no good for the equipment that was coming in. So it wasn't anticipated at the time they budgeted for. But when the installers came in to put it in, they required them to build a new stand for it or something. It was kind of expensive, just so that,
Thanks for the clarity, Larry. That helps. Anything else from members of council? So I'm going to call the question on the additional $7,000 funding. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 14.2, CD 2021-14, a zoning bylaw 2001-58, amendments and housekeeping. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report CD 2021-14, a zoning bylaw 2001-58, amendments and housekeeping for information, and the council supports the following amendments and associated housekeeping items as listed. 1, regulate the size of an accessory structure by lot coverage provisions within the existing bylaw. Yay. 2, remove the current regulation of yard provisions of buildings, structures that are less than 10 square meters. Remove the current regulation regarding garage/yard sales or special occasion uses. Permit only a seasonal dwelling as the principal residential use in a limited service residential zone. 5, permit and regulate C shipping containers in specific zones, agricultural, industrial, and commercial. And 6, permit and regulate C shipping containers in residential zones when the containers are incorporated into a design where a building permit has been issued. And further, the council directs staff to prepare a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2001-58 to effect the approved amendments and bring the draft bylaw forward to the regular council meeting in October for consideration and approval. Get a motion to get this on the floor, please. Thanks, Mark. It was seconded by Pat. Discussion. Yes, Pat. Just unmute, Pat.
I have no issue with what is written here. I had in my head that one of the things that we had asked to be considered too, though, was the proud of the house thing. Am I totally making that up? I thought we had discussed before that the accessory buildings and garages being proud of the house, we were considering changing that.
Defer to staff.
You're all looking like I imagined it. It is possible I imagined it.
I'm going to defer to staff.
You're correct, Councillor McCourt. It came to my attention, excuse me, after I had prepared the report for the agenda that I had missed that particular item. If that's something that certainly that council is supportive of, then we can also put that forward in the zoning bylaw for consideration, because we're talking about accessory buildings anyway.
I would like to see that added, but I can't speak for the rest of council.
Scott?
I wouldn't be able to support that. In particular on corner lots where they could create traffic issues. In subdivisions, of course, they're intended to be no closer than the front of the house wall, and that's from an aesthetic point of view as well. So I would not be able to support that.
It is something that comes forward at committee from time to time, but in most of those cases, there's a logical, defensible reason for it happening. Maybe we need to continue with that route. I know we're trying to reduce the amount of things that come to committee, but
I also struggle just because of the cost of a minor variance. When it's somebody wanting to build their garage on their lot where they would like it. And is there not a way that through building permit, if it's a visual problem for corners and things, that it would be dealt with there? I feel like it's a cost that every time somebody comes through for that, I'm like, here they are paying, thousands of dollars for something that to me is just something they would like on their plot that they feel is aesthetically pleasing.
so I'll ask the question, and Tim's present, is that putting too much responsibility on our building department, or is that something that you think you could make a pretty reasonable call?
Through Mayor Kane, setbacks are all regulated through the zoning bylaw, so it's not something that the building department is determining to be adequate, and something we could look at. And yes, Pat, you did discuss it through your comments on what we had proposed in coordinators meetings. We could start to discuss that it be looked at the same way it's looked at in agricultural zones. And that would be, as long as it complies with the setbacks of the zone, we can start to look at whether or not it can be in front of the house, as long as it's still maintaining that zone setback. Great conversation piece, but I think we need to look into that one with all members of council a little bit further. So,
if it's planning, I think we need some input from Sandra. Not to put you on the spot, Sandra.
There is provision in the bylaw with respect to front yard, exterior side setbacks. If one is increased, the other can be decreased, but it is very, very limited circumstances. I agree with Mr. Geronimus that we do need to have a sit down and really go over this before putting something forward to council.
Okay, so I think it sounds to me, Pat, to me that that's something we're going to have to not include in today's agenda, but it's also not something that's off the table. Is there any reason that staff comes up with something realistic that can't come forward on its own at a subsequent subsequent council meeting?
We can bring things forward at any time. with housekeeping. Yeah, that's not a problem. Might not be immediate, but we can work on it if it's not immediate.
Is that all right, Pat, or you?
Yeah, I don't have a specific time that, gee, it needs to be done with this housekeeping amendment. I just hope that it doesn't get completely lost, even if it's for further discussion first.
Okay, anything else from members of council? Oh, or staff, Sandra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do apologize if I've missed something, but I'm a little confused today. I thought we were supposed to be having a public meeting on this under the Planning Act because we are proposing amendments to the zoning bylaw. I have received a couple of letters from the public that need to be read out during the public meeting process. If the public meeting process is going to go forward in October, I will read those out at that time, especially since I can only find one at the moment. I do know pretty sure I had a second one. But if I've missed something, I do apologize.
Okay, so the motion reads that we're receiving this for information today. That doesn't mean we're adopting it today.
Granted,
yeah.
But it says to bring the bylaw forward next month, and I'm not sure we've had, again, I might have been asleep for some reason.
So do we have a public meeting planned? I'll turn it back to staff.
Mayor Kane, we did advertise of notice of a public meeting, and we advertised that in the August 26th edition of the Northumberland News. We had all of the items listed, and I don't believe, I just had checked with Emily, and no one signed on to this meeting to speak to this subject matter, and I was not aware of any letters received regarding what we've proposed. Again, this has been a project that's been worked on since February. Our target was to bring it forward to the September meeting, and we've done that. We can, today we were just looking at specifically resolutions from council on each specific item to that which would be telling us to proceed to the zoning bylaw draft stage. We've talked about these things over and over again, but staff needs clear direction. Do you want us to proceed with regulating the size of the accessory structure? Do you want us to remove the regulation of the 10 square meters? So we're looking for a motion on each separate item. If that takes us, then that gives staff clear direction on how to proceed with these items. It doesn't preclude us from always bringing forward housekeeping amendments where we see the pressures during committee of adjustment or pressures from the public themselves when they are calling staff and speaking to the planning department or speaking to the building department. And we see those trending pressures as well. So Sandra is right. We did advertise for a public meeting, and we can deal with that in October together with perhaps clearer direction on where we're going, or perhaps a draft zoning bylaw of the items that council hopefully supports today.
Okay, thank you. And I mean, so if you've advertised it and got zero response, and this is, this is a public agenda which has been put out there, and we had a question period today, and there was zero questions. So, I mean, the obvious conclusion to me is that there's not a lot of public interest. So I don't know that precludes us having a meeting, but if it's
so that council today can give direction for us to hold. Again, put a notice in again of a public meeting for the October regular council meeting date. We'll list this under public meetings under section 34 of the Planning Act. And then if there are the public that specifically want to speak to, again, these items that perhaps will have more information and more particulars, then you can hold that in October with the draft, corresponding draft zoning bylaw.
Okay, so do we need to add something to the motion that we have on the floor?
Certainly, we can add that the notice of public meeting be re-advertised for the October regular council meeting.
So I've lost who moved and seconded, but I would ask those two if they're okay with this change to the motion? Mark?
Yeah, I believe I moved it and I'm okay with the change.
Okay, and you think you seconded it, Pat?
I think I did, yeah, fairly sure, actually.
Okay, and you're okay with this change?
Yes, I am.
Yes, okay.
Does that mean, though, that the letters that Sandra has get held over to the October meeting? Yes?
I would say so.
Okay.
Anything else from members of council? So I know, Tim, that you prodded us for input. One of the issues I know that was on the questionnaire that you sent us revolved around chickens, and I don't see anything here today. Am I to assume that it got little support from members of council, or?
Mayor Kane,
Yes.
we, as a collective staff team on this particular project, it wasn't unanimous amongst the team to add the chickens. So as a team, we did not bring it forward.
Okay, and council input was negligible. There wasn't enough of us who responded to that. Did you
Mayor
get?
King?
Yes, Jim.
Yep. Council members did respond. That was a positive response, but again, for at a staff level to bring it forward, we needed to be on the same page as well.
Okay.
So that may be something that's also updated the same time we look at the building sitting proud, or accessory sitting proud of the principal.
And I'm going to say that that wouldn't be something that would be included in the public meeting because it's not on the list.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else from members of council or staff? Okay, I'm going to call for the vote then on the amended motion. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. 14.3, National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, which is National Orange Shirt Day. It's recommended the Council of Corporation Township of Hamlin acts as follows. The council received report number CD 2021-15, the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, which is National Orange Shirt Day, for information. And that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamlin commits to recognizing September 30th, 2021 as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, National Orange Shirt Day, by sharing the stories of residential school survivors, their families, and communities. Yes, Pat, motion to move forward.
I'll make the motion for discussion.
And second. Thanks, Scott. And
how are we planning to do that?
We are having a day, right? On that, the day is September 30th.
But the sharing of stories and things, are we doing that? Like how we've got the motion, how are we planning to put it into effect?
Okay, I'll defer to Emily and see she's come on. Emily, just essentially before you start, this is the tradition. This is the official Orange Shirt Day T-shirt. As you can see, it comes in extra large. I didn't know if there was anything we could do as a municipality to. I don't know how you would acquire these. I don't know if they came from Alderville First Nation. Obviously got this through the county. But I don't know the exact source. But I was wondering if we could look into a number of these. If we're having a day, we're having a day at the BCC, right?
Yes, excuse me. Sorry, through you, Mayor Kane. Yes, we have Colleen McBride and I have been working with Chief Mowat of Alderville First Nation, who has agreed to come and speak at some staff training sessions on September 30th at the Baltimore Rec Center. So he's going to be providing an overview of the history of residential schools and the impact that it's had on First Nation communities. He's also I'm going to address land acknowledgement statements and the importance of having those at our public meetings for staff to generate that general awareness of as well as the awareness of truth and reconciliation efforts in the report. We're also going on we're doing a communication campaign, both internal and external, to encourage staff to wear orange shirts on September 30th in support of the Every Child Matters and the the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, as well as advertising some resources on our social media pages, one of which includes a recommendation from Chief Mowat on the book, The Boy Who Walked Backwards. And it's a children's story addressing first the residential school system. And he recommends it as a good way to bridge that educational gap for children and to introduce them to the residential school history.
Okay, thanks. That's your question, Pat?
It does. I really like the shirt. Is it possible that somebody can tell me how we go about getting them? Because I would definitely buy one.
I don't know. I wore it so I could show it to try and promote the idea.
But now that I've seen it, I want it.
We could maybe get some for staff. I don't know. Yes, Larry?
Yes, you can get them up in Roseneath at one of the service stations.
Okay.
Specifically, Crows are selling them.
Excellent.
And they have all
Thank you,
kinds
Larry.
of. Okay.
Is it worth us looking at well, I say a bulk purchase, I don't mean thousands of them or anything, but I mean a number that would accommodate staff and council, perhaps, or anyone who's attending the September 30th get together at the BCC. It would be, I think it would be a good show if we all had on that official T-shirt. Those of us who are going to be present.
Is that open to staff or to council?
Yes, it can be if council are available to attend.
So if you could
Absolutely.
forward information about time, that would be helpful.
Sure, through you, Mayor Kane, there actually are 2 sessions, but we could do that and make sure people are aware that they're more than welcome to attend as well. And we had been looking at other tangible acknowledgements, whether it was posting on signs or otherwise, and flag and T-shirts are things we'll also pursue, see if they're right. A larger purchase might help for the attendees.
So could you at some point contact members and let us know how that's proceeding? Because if it's not, some may wish to go and some may
Yes.
wish to go buy their own T-shirt.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Larry?
So what time are those 2 sessions, are there? On the 30th. You said there's 2 sessions?
Yes.
You know what time they are?
I know there was a half-hour break between the one and the second. I think it's, give me 2 seconds and I'll find it in the email.
Bet you Emily knows. Bet you Emily knows.
I bet you Emily
yeah.
knows. Yes,
Yes, Mayor Kane. The sessions are from 1 to 2 and 2:30 to 3:30.
there you go.
Thank you.
I knew that.
It's nice to
Thank
see
you.
I'm not
Thank
the
you,
only one
Emily.
that depends on the clerk's department, Arthur.
That's right.
Is there any other input, questions? Then we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 14.14. CD 2021-16, the CD 2021-16 notice of public meeting for New Amherst Community Secondary Plan. It's recommended that the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton acts as follows. Council receives report CD 2021-16. Notice of public meeting for New Amherst Community Secondary Plan Stage 2, Phase 3 subdivision plan for information, and the council of township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council supports the established policies of the New Amherst Community Secondary Plan that would ensure that an effective landscaped urban/rural buffer is established along the mutual boundary lines as agreed by both Hamilton Township and the town of Cobourg during the OMB hearings of 1997. Mover, thanks, Mark, and seconded by Larry. Any input, questions? This buffer zone is completely within the town of Cobourg's boundary lines, am I correct?
That's correct.
Thanks, Kate. And the most interesting line for me was the cost to us is 0. Any other important facts that we need to know then? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. So just cognizant of time, it's 3:40. Think we can get through to our closed session in 20 minutes. Well, let's give it a try. We're gonna have a break at some point, and we need to probably between this meeting and the close would be the best. So if we can get there by 4 o'clock, that's good. If not, we'll just do it some other way. So we're at the 14.15 CAO 2021-07, the ORV/ATV pilot project. It's recommended the Council Corporation Township Hamilton acts as follows. Council receives report CAO 2021-07, the ORV/ATV pilot report for information, and the council agrees to proceed to permit a pilot use of ORVs in the township. And the council adopts a bylaw to give effect to the pilot until up to November 1st, 2022. I have a mover to get this on the floor. Thanks, Larry. Seconded by Mark. My very first question is that in the motion, it says to get the pilot into effect until up to the 1st of November. Is that indicating that there's a plug that could be pulled before that? Is that the indication? I'm just looking for the wording, Arthur.
So through you, Mayor Kane, I took as feedback from the meeting in July that if a pilot we were able to proceed with it, and if there were some serious problems that were identified, or there was a desire to end the pilot sooner rather than the very sort of full period, we wanted still to have that flexibility. So I was just being clear that was a possibility in the framing of the discussion.
Thank you for the clarity. Yes, Larry.
I recommend that we begin the pilot in the spring of 2022. We've only got 2 months left of this year to November. And I don't think that's going to give us enough time to get the signs up and do all the communication and arrange all the information that has to go out to these people. Because one of the things that we don't want to happen is in the spring or now have a lot of confusion. And I think, it's fine. I'm absolutely for the pilot, but I think we shouldn't start it till the spring. There's only 2 months left of this year. And so we'd have to end it by November 30th of 21. And I think give ourselves enough time to get some feedback from people and stuff like that about the roads, etc. So that's my recommendation.
Anyone else on council like to weigh in? Yes, Scott.
I have several components of this, and forgive me, but I'm probably sitting here with a very bad taste in my mouth, because last week I had a cousin killed on an ATV out west. And if that doesn't impact my thoughts, and I'd be surprised. For me, as we all know, I did not support the idea of a pilot in the first place. I support the idea that council did, but I was optimistic that it would be on certain roads, not all roads. And I continue to be frustrated by the component that we're looking at this pilot and potential bylaw to approve because we can't enforce otherwise. Well, within this document, there's several components that generate an enforcement requirement. One is the time of day. One is the time of year. One is the time of daylight. And I wonder how we can introduce those components expecting they're going to be complied with or enforced when we can't enforce the rules and regulations that are in place today. So I see a lot of problems with this, as I did originally. I've not moved away from that. I am not supportive of a pilot, and I'm certainly not supportive of the pilot that's in front of us at this point in time. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Pat?
So completely the opposite side. Scott, I was saddened to hear about your relative. I still struggle with us not putting something into effect that there are so many people who legitimately use ATVs now as recreational vehicles in our township in an appropriate way. And when you talk about, well, if you do this road or that road, that you think that's good, then I come back to the enforcement thing. I don't think it will get enforced. That I don't believe that it will get enforced unless an actual Highway Traffic Act rule is being broken, and the laws are still in place for that. The only thing I was trying to recall, and I didn't have a chance to go through quickly enough to see it, is I believe that the Highway Traffic Act has a separate speed limit for ATVs. And my thought in signage is that that is signage that we would want to go up, because lots of people probably don't realize that there is actually a separate speed that that is enforceable by the OPP. So for that, yes, we want the signage. I would like to see the pilot project start as soon as that signage goes up, which may be, like Larry says, may end up being in the spring. But I feel like so many people feel like they've been hanging on for so long for some kind of a decision, whether it's no, we're doing nothing, or yes, we're going to move forward the pilot project, that we're just opening ourselves up for similar conversations as we've been having over the last 2 years from largely the same people who are very clear, like, this is a split. This, no matter what we do here, we're going to make at least 30% of the people unhappy. There's probably 40% who don't care one way or the other because they don't have ATVs and they're not bothered. But I think it's time to take that step forward.
Thanks, Pat. The only advantage that I can see to some of the rules and regulations they're bringing forward to partially answer maybe Scott's question, they will help us to some degree with liability. For example, if we have the bylaw that says you're not to be operating, the ATV after dark, and someone is operating it after dark, and there is an unfortunate incident, that person's breaking the law. And I mean, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but at least in that case, our liability would be somewhat reduced. And a couple of the other regulations that Arthur's putting forward have the same sort of idea.
So would that, my apologies, would that fall the same then for roads that we actually think are going to be a problem, like Alnwick Hill, with the steepness? Like, I'm not sure where we draw that line. And I don't think the line can be, we get letters from people saying, I want my road excluded. I think it has to be, if you're going to exclude a road, it has to be on a safety issue by somebody specifically picked, as this is who is judging it on the quality of the road. Just like that's the part where I think it's almost an all or nothing thing. But what you were saying about certain times of the year or not driving after dark, in terms of liability, that does make sense to me.
See, Larry's trying to jump in. You went reversed on your mute, Larry.
I got a call the other day by someone who'd heard a radio commercial from one of the dealers up in Peterborough. And at the end of the commercial, it said that it is not recommended that this product be used on paved roads. So I went up to the dealer. I won't mention the dealer, or I won't mention the manufacturer for privacy reasons. And I asked the person who was responsible, I said, you put a disclaimer at the end of your radio commercial. He said, oh, that's the requirement by the manufacturer as part of the dealer franchise agreement. So I said, okay, well, is that true? You can't drive this product on the road. He said, well, if you've got a license and you're of age and you've got a license and you've got insurance and you wear the proper equipment, he says, I don't know reason why you couldn't. So then I jumped into every damn ATV and ORV on the lot to look at the label that's affixed to the product. And it's confusing because in some of the products or machines, it does indicate down at the bottom, this is not to be used on paved surfaces or hard surfaces. And then some of the other products don't. So then there's a difference between an ATV and an ORV. An ATV is called an all-terrain vehicle, which is very confusing. An ORV is to be meant as an off-road vehicle. And it's usually a primarily enclosed four-wheel side-by-side. I learned a lot. So then I thought, okay, that's fine. And they sell a lot of them too. I went and looked at see if these manufacturers, when they have commercials, how do they interpret or show or demonstrate the product in a commercial? They show ATVs in extreme situations, on off-road situations, both ATVs and ORVs. They show mainly on farm, logging and backwoods. And I was trying to see if they had showed an ATV traveling along a hard top paved surface. In not one case in one of those commercials, they show it. They did show in one scene where the ATV was being driven on a gravel road, but I couldn't determine whether it was a public road or it was just in a laneway in a farm. But it still brings back a little limit to liability. So I know in the speed limits are indicated that you can only drive 20 kilometers an hour if it's in a 50 and 50 kilometers an hour if it's in an 80 or above 50. But I think we should be taking a look, for instance, if we're going to let them on the road, we've got to take a look at our roads and reduce the speed limits in some of these roads to ensure the fact that we're not getting people going any faster than they need to be, because some of these roads are not fit for ATVs. I also looked at a lot of crashes of ATVs. Many of them show single vehicle incidents where the drivers were being truant in the way they were driving the product and then losing control and crashing. These were serious injuries and deaths. There were other accidents where these vehicles were being hit side crashes and front and back crashes. If you get ATV, you're going to do a lot of damage. So I think we really got to take a look at the road situation. And I think they should be driven with lights on during the day, have flags on them so that people can see them from the farm point of view. You know, a farmer coming out of a field with a big combine and an ATV goes by, they wouldn't have a chance to see them. But I'm just putting my 2 cents out there. That's why I'm saying I think we need to really get into this a little bit more. And I would hold off on passing this pilot until the spring of 2022. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for the info, Larry. Anyone else? Pat again.
I would be okay with us passing the pilot and saying the start date is, but at least we have the pilot passed. If there's some things that we want to see about adjusting a little bit. I just don't want us deferring it again to be looked at in the spring for passing it then.
It's like we're dangling a carrot in front of the ATV users, you know, they have been very patient. Since we decided to go to a pilot, they've been very patient about pushing and, you know, asking when. And I've only had one call. I think I already said that. So.
And just as a side comment about the advertising, that doesn't surprise me at all, Larry. I don't know an ATVer whose preference is to drive on the road. They all want to just get to someplace where they can drive. Now, actually, that's not quite true. Sometimes they're just going to their neighbor's house, but the majority of time, they're still wanting to head to somewhere where they can get off-road.
So we only do have a month, but like at least a couple of things that Larry's mentioned, I'm on board with. For example, we have discussed in the past that they would have a flag. And you know, any vehicle, any road vehicle, car, truck, motorcycle, you can't turn it on without the lights coming on. They all have running. They don't have tail lights, but they all have headlights, the day running lights that come on automatically if you turn the key on. So there's certainly a pretty easy argument to be made for what Larry's suggesting, that ATVs and ORVs need their lights on at all times when they're on the roads. I don't know if that's too hard, Arthur, to make some adjustments at this point or not, but I think those are two ideas I would certainly support that Larry's come forward with, just for safety reasons. Yes, Mark.
Sorry, I'm all for safety and so forth, but how are you going to make people that may not even live in our municipality that will be traveling our roads know that they have to have these things, such as lights, such as flags and so forth, let alone the people that do live here? How are they going to know that? I mean, unless you're going to sign every road and everywhere, I mean, it's almost going to be impossible. That's almost a provincial, something that you'd want to talk to the province and having them enforce rather than us trying to enforce it. Because I mean, you know, these are vehicles traveling on the highways anywhere and at any time, as long as the province says they're allowed to, and as long as the municipalities say they're allowed to. So how do you start to add to, you know, these extras on to?
We add to our website for sure. I mean, that's then that would be the first
Mm-hmm.
place we would start.
But very few people look at our website. I mean, I know some do, but it's,
yeah. We send out a communication a number of times a year. It could certainly be included in that communication that goes out to every taxpayer.
Mayor Levchin, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's 3:58. And if all of council is in agreement to request a motion to extend the meeting for 1 hour.
Sorry, Kate, I was watching the clock, but then I got distracted. So is that a motion, Pat, to extend the meeting by 1 hour? And I will give you a break as soon as we get through this regular session before we go to closed. That's seconded by Scott. All in favor? Thanks, Kate. So
Could we do the, sorry.
No, say we're extended till 5.
Okay. Could we do the lights and the flag as a recommendation, as like an education piece? And put it on the website that way? Because like Mark said, out of community, like if you're coming from Alnwick Calderman, you're not going to know the specific rule for Hamilton Township.
No.
And can we advocate for it to become a provincial requirement?
And I think we go through the ATV club as well. Yes, Arthur.
Sorry, if I can just refer quickly to the regulation, provincial regulation on that we're operating in. I make reference to it in the report that it's Ontario Reg, sorry for the delay here, Ontario Reg 31603. And it's referenced in the report about equipment that's required. It is also making a reference to lights partway down. It's called lamps, section 13. And I as you know, I'm not probably want to read it too much, but I do want to clarify specifically what it says. And that is that under section 13.1, despite 62.1 of the act, that's just a reference, the off-road vehicle must be equipped with 1 or 2 lamps that emit a white light on the front of the vehicle and 1 or 2 lamps that emit a red light at the rear of the vehicle. And then it says under section 2, as required, these lights are as required by subsection 1, they must be lit at all times the off-road vehicle is operated on the highway. Sure. So it's clarifying.
It's covered.
Yes, if you're in a field, you know, you don't have to have them on, but the regulation covers it. In fact, if you're going to be on the highway, they need to be on front and back. It doesn't say anything about a flag. That would be something extra, but it is saying what it is. There's other things in there where I was not trying to sort of go over and above what the province had actually set out for all municipalities, but using sort of the standards, whether it was speed, equipment, lights, and related sort of issues. So I just wanted to flag that for your attention.
You're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mark. Larry, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, just to the comment that, through you, Mr. Mayor, the comment that Mark was saying is that it does indicate that when traveling to a different municipality, it's your responsibility to find out what their rules and regulations are. So you just don't go and travel to another municipality and, not check in with the municipality. So it does cover you off in that way. That's the act.
Good.
So
Thanks, Larry. Yes, Scott.
Question and then a comment. Arthur, today we have a bylaw in place that sort of follows what MTO had, that they're not permitted, but yet there are exemptions to that. I believe there's 4. What impact does this draft bylaw that we have in front of us, what impact does it have on what's in place today? Does it remain in place, i.e. the exemptions, or are they subject to the rules that we're about to pass or consider passing rather?
I'll give a quick check to the regulations. My initial thought is that you're exempt. Those, for example, I know that farmers, for example, are exempt from the provisions. The exemption would override what the bylaw would say, but you'll have to give me a moment to confirm that. There is nothing by permitting, by permitting, if council proceeds with a pilot, if by permitting that, then they would in fact be allowed to do what other people would be allowed to do. So I guess that's the conflict between an exemption means that wide open, and you'd have some restrictions on time of day, time of year use. So if you give me a moment and carry on with the discussion, I'll see if there is that sort of clarification about whether that exemption would continue irrespective of a local municipal bylaw.
And obviously, Arthur, what I'm thinking is that those exemptions, and you mentioned the agricultural community, with certain conditions, helmets, insurance, licenses, and all those things. And for this conversation, we're assuming they're in place. They would not be restricted by the time of day or the time of year or the time of daylight. They would be able to comply with the current regulation that follows the old MTO regulation.
Understood.
And my comment, that's my question, and my comment is, based on the discussion and the thoughts of flags and lights and different things in certain roads and not certain roads, for example, it to me, it's apparent that the bylaw that we have in front of us is not meeting those thoughts. And as a result of that, I think we do need to defer this and to allow an alternate bylaw to be considered and possibly approved in the future. But the one we have in front of us isn't sufficient from what I can tell from the conversation.
Yes, Pat.
I just would still disagree. The lights we've got covered. The roads we've talked about, that if we start naming roads, that's going to end up being a bigger problem for us. Time of day, nobody's questioned that it's going to be daylight with the exemptions that we talked about. I mean, I guess the only thing that maybe should be added to the bylaw would be with something to the effect of what the exemptions that currently stand with MTO. I don't know how the wording would be, but I would have no problem with that being in addition to the bylaw. But I don't feel like there's anything that we've talked about that we haven't, that like is actually a problem with passing this bylaw.
So I don't see any more hands. The only, well, actually the outstanding issue at the moment then would be the regulations with regards to exemptions that already exist. So Arthur, you're going to verify that those exemptions will continue and will not be affected by the bylaw before us.
Just trying to check that, yes,
Yeah.
Mayor King.
Okay. Well, that's the way we want it. So whatever we have to do to make that happen, that needs to happen. Yes, Larry.
I'm trying to remember if under the law, this 81603, are we to rescind our bylaw to not allow ATVs and then to allow and to provide a bylaw to allow ORVs? I think there was some confusion at one point. Under the act, ATVs are supposed to be allowed on the road anywhere, anytime. And we elected to put a bylaw in place not to allow them. But the government came back and said, if you want, ORVs have to have a bylaw to allow them on the road. Is that correct or incorrect? That was in that, what is it, 3160803. That's when we first all started this. And I think the whole activity was that they were opening up to ATVs, but ORVs, which are off-road vehicles, had to have a bylaw to allow them on the road.
So that's two issues then it's raised. Can we start with the first one? Do we have to repeal our existing bylaw first?
I think that's the point.
That's our first question. Do we have to repeal that, or does this supersede it?
Mayor Kane,
Thanks.
I'm really honestly quite not sure whether we can suspend the current bylaw to allow for the pilot. So specify that period of time for the pilot versus rescinding the bylaw that we currently have in place. I would have to dig into, well, I won't, but the clerk staff will have to dig into that. And I know other municipalities have had pilots, but they had those under the Highway Traffic Act that prohibited that type of traffic on the roads. Since the Highway Traffic Act has been amended that now allows them, it's a little bit different, and we'd have to try to find somebody or even our lawyer to find out really what that path looks like. I'm sorry.
So where does that leave us as far as today's motion?
In a position where we should be deferring, Mr. Kane.
And we can't vote on something that's not if we don't know it's legal. Yes, Daphne.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, through you, if I might offer a suggestion. So you have a motion on the floor to receive the pilot report for information, to agree to permit a pilot use of ORVs in the township. So I think from what I gather that I'm hearing some consensus on those 2 points. The last point being that council adopts a bylaw to give effect to the pilot up until November 1st. I think that's where I'm hearing that there's some room for maneuvering. So that clause could be amended to further refer back the bylaw to staff to refine those points that you mentioned, including the date of the start and end of the pilot. And that might give staff a little bit of time to not only clarify the legal issues, but the other topics in terms of jurisdiction and what matters supersede the others legislatively. So that's just, if I may put that out there for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. So the way the bylaw reads, it would have started, if this bylaw were passed today, it would have started today, Arthur?
Correct.
Yeah, that I think faced with the questions that we have, and I'm not going back on supporting the fact that we should have a pilot, but I'm a little bit concerned that we're not too sure what we're doing here legally with regards to our old bylaw, for example. I'm wondering if we shouldn't be looking at setting a date other than today if we're going to start the bylaw, give staff some time. Do we need another whole month? And then we're into, October, or can we pass it with a tentative starting date of whatever, October 1st or October 15th or whatever? I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas around. I don't know about the rest of the council. I'm getting the idea. None of us are too. We're a little bit worried about passing something and we don't know the legalities behind it. We don't know the legalities of the existing bylaw.
So that's fair enough. I understand what you're saying. I'm trying to, I don't want to give misinformation, obviously, to council on the interplay of the existing bylaw to the new one. I think the one would replace the other, but we want to be clear on that and repeal, whether we repeal it or simply the new one takes over. And but we'll clarify that. And the second component would be the interaction of the existing exemptions, which include to, I think the section is referred to as Deputy Mayor Gibbs mentioned, members of the agricultural community. I think it's called the latter part down in the whole section. There's a number included, and they, for example, are municipal employees or emergency ones. There's also a whole section on farmers and trappers, public works functions in the far north. So I would want to clarify that our bylaw will not constrain that ongoing exemption in the future. But that's something I'd like to be able to come back with. I've read a few things now and just don't want to provide any misinformation to council or to the user groups.
So that's sounding even more to me like we need to consider putting this off. I really dislike for the ATV users who have been waiting patiently for this to delay them further. But if we're going to do this, we have to get it right. We can't make legal mistakes, for example. So I'll throw that out. Yes, Mark.
I just like to, I know I made the original motions. I'd like to go back on that and just defer it for a month. I mean, we've gone this long. I mean, 1 month isn't going to matter, and we may not even be doing it for this year anyway. I mean, it's time you get the signage up and everything. And I mean,
well, if we know we're going to go forward, we can start working on signage now. We don't have to have the bylaw passed for staff to start working on signage. And my concern about not starting it now is, again, we've dangled this in front of them for so long. And we also have people who want to use their ATVs for snow removal in the winter. So there's a lot of reasons to get it started. But we can't get it started if we're not sure what we're doing. We have to be legally, correct. So who was the original seconder of the motion? I think, was it you, Larry? It was Pat again. Okay. So Marcus wants to completely go back on the motion and ask for a 1 month deferral so we can look into the legalities here.
Okay, like I'm supportive of the first two parts of it. I mean, if that will help as far as the ATVers go and their concerns, and I mean, it makes it go forward at least. I can support the first two parts of the motion. It's just the third part of it that I'd like to see deferred for a month.
I'm having trouble bringing the motion up in front of me. Am I right in thinking that the first two say that, yes, we're going to go forward with the pilot project?
No, the second one says,
I'd like that to be firm, even if it's still waiting on the logistics of signs and
that's only the first section, and I agree with that. The second one says council agrees to proceed to permit the pilot use. And that we're not ready for that yet.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. It's the third part where you have the extras that go above and beyond that. I mean, yeah, I'm a favor. I think Daphne she had she came forward with 3 issues or 3 items. And I'm not sure if she could speak on those again. I'd like to hear what she had to say.
Thank you, Mayor, Councillor Levison, and through you, Mr. Mayor, what I was referring to is the recommendation that you have in front of you, and you're absolutely correct that the first clause is related to receiving the report for information. The second clause is that council agrees to proceed to permit a pilot use of ORVs in the township. And then it's the third one that I think could be amended to give action or direction to staff to return with the parameters that that our CAO had identified. So including the impact of the old bylaw and whether or not it needs to be repealed, whether or not the existing provisions or the exemptions and what happens to those, and then clarify how the new bylaw impacts legally the old exemptions that are in place currently.
So I can agree with all of that if my seconder will.
But the problem I'm having with that, Mark, is the way the second part reads, that council agrees to proceed to permit a pilot use of ORVs in the township. Would that not start immediately?
No, not until they come back with the provisions.
The bylaw.
Okay.
So I am absolutely fine with adjusting to 1 and 2 only.
And deferring the third one.
Deferring till the next council meeting.
Yeah.
For staff
Yes.
report and
At
clarification.
least that way we're going forward with something. Everybody knows we're going forward. We're just coming back with clarification on the rest of it.
Okay.
Question, if I might, Bill. With that information coming back, will it also include the information on the cost of the signs and when they could be installed? Because I don't feel comfortable in any way of any of us passing a trial without signage on the roads advising people accordingly of speed limits and those components.
I'm gonna have to defer to staff. I know there's no reason we can't start doing that like tomorrow.
So through Mayor Kane to Deputy Mayor Jib's question. There was some initial estimates we gave towards signs, but obviously we want to make sure we have the speed signs as well as the permitted use. So we'll be able to start that, given the council wants to proceed with the pilot. We'll be able to start the ordering, or at least understanding what the cost of that will be, how many locations potentially, and making sure they're clear. And I know that some municipalities already have these kinds of things, kinds of signage, so we could be able to look for models or look for ideas as we prepare our own. There will be a bit of an issue around if we need locates if we cannot use existing poles or posts. There will be some timing in some locations, but otherwise we would be able to look for locations where they could be installed and be visible.
Yes, Larry.
Just one last comment. I would like to see us take a look at the speed limits on some of these roads. You know, right now there's a lot of 80-kilometer roads, and I think we need to identify some areas to reduce them.
We get a lot of requests on police services to reduce speeds on some of our 80K roads. And some of them probably shouldn't be 80K, I agree. I don't know how difficult a procedure it would be to do a complete reversal, Larry, on this, and instead of having our default speed be 80, it would be much simpler if we have our default speed be 60 and just mark the roads that we want to have as 80.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's opening a whole can of worms, but that's the ultimate solution for me. And that's something that can be discussed at, I guess, different committees. Police services, corporate. Maybe we could get that on some agendas and see just how complicated that would be. I don't know how you feel about that, Larry, but that, to me, that's the solution.
That would be good.
How about you, Pat?
That might be an aside from what we're actually discussing right now, but just in passing, Port Hope does it that way.
Yeah, they do.
Why is this not working?
So we have a motion that's been revised greatly. The mover and seconder both agreed. Basically, this is a deferral for 1 month with the acceptance of the first two parts of the for information bylaw that was put forward. In a short nutshell, is that clear enough for what we're voting on? All right, and I'll ask the question, is everybody in favor? And we have 4. That's carried.
Mr. Mayor, could I have a recorded vote on that, please?
Sure. I have to go to the clerk.
If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Mayor, if I could just get some clarity, please. So because we've amended a motion that was on the floor, I'd like a vote first on the amendment.
Okay.
And then I would like a recorded vote according to Councillor Jib on the final motion as amended.
Okay. So we need clarity on the amended motion, or do you simply need to vote on the amendment?
So first, a vote on the amendment, which
Okay.
was to approve the first two clauses. And then the last clause would be that consideration of the final bylaw be deferred to refine the parameters of the pilot program. And then I was just going to build that section out to include those points that were mentioned earlier. So that in itself is the amendment. And vote on that. And then we will have a recorded vote for the final motion as amended.
Okay, so we're voting first of all on the amendment. That's to change what we're voting on. All in favor? That is carried. And now we're having a vote on that amended motion, and it will be recorded.
May I ask Kate, our lovely clerk, if she wouldn't mind doing the recorded vote?
Okay, so we're calling a recorded vote. And that is item, please confirm the item number.
14.15.
2.15. Thank you. And I'll call on Deputy Mayor Jibb.
Nay.
Nay. Pardon me.
Nay.
Okay. And Councillor Lovshin.
Yay.
Councillor McCourt.
Yay.
Councillor Williamson.
Yay.
And Mayor Kane.
Yay.
That is 4 for yay and 1 for nay, and it moves forward to approve the amended motion.
Thanks, Kate. Sorry about that, everybody. So we're on to emergency services, 15. Nothing there. Communications and announcements. We have 16.1 through 16.6. Can we get a motion to receive all those communications? It's recommended the Council of Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows at agenda items 16.1 through 16.5 on September 1st, 2021 regular council meeting be received. If we get that on the floor, then we can pull anything you want. Yes, Mark, and seconded by Larry, all in favor? And that's carried. So we have anything on 16.1. That was a petition that I believe you received, Arthur. Is there any council action required on this?
Through Mayor Kane, actually, I had an email, a brief phone call with Ms. Thornton. What I was proposing to do was to send a letter on behalf of the township to Bell in particular, because of the service difficulties we're experiencing. I think her information was that they were having problems with internet access. But this was trying to deal with the initial or immediate problem we're facing with some Bell cellular and internet related issues here and in Baltimore and in the area in general. So we're trying to ask them to address that. I'll be copying council, the MP and the MPP for their support as well. She has separately tried to pursue a petition, and if that's something that she can do or pursue on her own, obviously we would encourage her to do that on her own. We're also, as you know, continuing to work with the county on the expansion of internet coverages across the township, across the county, as part of on any support we can do to the county's application process to the provincial federal government. So that was my plan, was not to have a petition on our website hosted, but to encourage her to do that, and then to take the step to have a letter, which I've drafted now, and we'll be sending to Bell Mobility directly.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, council or staff? Kate, did you have something?
Not on that item.
Okay, 16.2, so support for Bill C6. Anybody want to bring anything out of that? 16.3, planning matters correspondence with the town of Cobourg. Northumberland County's POA advocacy. I think the whole idea they're trying to speed up all the backlog that they've got in provincial courts right now. It's just crazy.
do you want us to support that?
I think we probably should support that. That's what I was
I'd
indicating.
make a
Yeah.
Motion to support then.
Thank you. Larry seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you. That's carried. 16.5, slow your roll from the county. Are we participating? We've been asked to participate by indicating that we're on board. Yes, Larry?
I support that. The speeding that we're getting around here, if we could all do that, our part to play on that one, that'd be good.
Okay, but this is also coming forward at Police Services Board on this Thursday, so there might be something further there. I think this is probably going to have to be, correct me if I'm wrong, no, I believe this is going to be voluntary by any members of council or staff. I don't think we can mandate the entire council or our staff to be involved. I think it's going to have to be an individual choice. Am I correct in that, Arthur? Kate, somebody, is that the way it's going to have to go? We're going to have to buy it individually.
I'm sorry, my earplugs fell out.
Sorry about that as well.
What was the question again, Mayor Kane? I'm
Well, we're
sorry.
being asked by the county to support this program, Slow Your Roll. But I don't think as a council, we can tell everybody that's what they have to do. I think it needs to be the individual volunteer. So the question is, how do we sign on? So let's just say that Scott and Pat are in and the rest of us are out. How do Scott and Pat opt in?
So
It's in
the article.
In the package, okay.
Yeah, it tells you there.
Okay, good.
To Councillor Lufsen's comment, it's in the note. As part of the campaign, an online pledge will be launched in October for residents, so that'll include anyone in the area, to digitally express their commitment. And then once they do that, they're going to get a free Slow Your Roll vehicle cling in the mail to then put on your vehicle to show support and spread the word.
I did read all that. I'm sorry.
That's no problem. I hope that helps.
Okay. So I believe we made the motion. We haven't passed the motion. So all in favor? Okay, thank you. That's carried. So we're at 17.7, 2121.41, a bylaw to appoint a clerk. It's recommended the Council of Corporation Township of Hamilton and acts as follows: the bylaw 2021-41 being a bylaw to appoint Daphne Livingston, CMO, as the municipal clerk of the township for Hamilton, to be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed the 21st day of September 2021. Moved by Larry, seconded by Scott. Discussion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Officially welcome, Daphne.
Through you, Mayor Kane. Can I make just one remark, which is obviously to welcome Daphne Livingston as our new municipal clerk formally. And I give you a round of applause for taking that on. The second one is, I don't know if anyone else on council was either going to make a note, perhaps you were, Mayor, but obviously by the transfer from Daphne from our clerk, Kate Serreris, she has been a valued employee for over 33 plus years, and today now being her last sort of formal official duties as a municipal clerk, and I wanted to highlight that formally and officially here with council and publicly. So to thank her for her very dedicated and considerable achievements over that period.
Thank you, Arthur, for that. And I was going to comment.
I'm sure.
Kate's here to the bitter end. She's going down fighting and still trying to keep me on the straight and narrow.
No, I have one more item, Mayor Kane.
Oh no. Do I want to hear this?
Yes, I do. But thank you very much, Arthur. Thank you very much, council. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. Worked with quite a few councillors all through my career. And I look forward to it all the time. The election, the change, it just changes everything. And it gives us, it's never stagnant. I'll put it that way, which is a good thing. But my one little tidbit back here is that it's been brought to my attention that Anita's report 2021-004, because it was water related, we did not do a recorded
Right.
vote. So I
Jeez.
asked that, can we go back to that
Oh,
item
dear.
and do that, please?
Yeah, I don't. Let's just scroll back and try and find the number.
I don't have the item number in front of me, unfortunately,
No,
but I
those-
have suggested that they put that in as part of their recommendation. Then we don't miss it.
Right. No, that's my fault. I mean, it's only been 7
It's-
years on council that we voted every time as a,
It's
It's
12.3.
12.1, 12.3.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, 12.3.
Thanks, Larry. There we go. So who am I speaking to then? Who's taking minutes? You, Kate?
So I believe I'm still clerk until
Okay.
the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna make you go down fighting. So
Okay, so on,
we're at item
Yeah.
12.3. We need
Yeah.
to visit because we need to take a recorded vote because it's a water related issue.
correct. So the report was approved. So now I'll call the recorded vote and I will call on Deputy Mayor Jibb first, please.
Yay.
And Mayor, I'm sorry, Councillor Lovshin
Yay.
and Councillor McCourt,
Yay.
Councillor Williamson,
Yay.
and Mayor Kane.
Yay.
That was unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks for catching that, Kate.
Well, actually, it was the treasurer.
Thanks for catching that, Nazrat. See how many people it takes to try and keep up with me, Daphne?
Thank
No.
goodness with texting, we can catch ourselves on these things and stay on top of it.
All right. So I think now if I get back up to my present clerk, I believe we're at 17.2. Designate head for Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection Act. It's recommended that council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton enacts as follows: that bylaw 2021-42 being a bylaw to designate a head for the purpose of Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act for the township of Hamilton be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed the 21st day of September 2021. Thanks, Larry. Seconder. Thanks, Mark. Discussion. That appointed person is the clerk, right? Yes, okay.
And designate. So if the
Right.
clerk is not able, then it's the designate.
Okay, thank you. I'll say, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. 17.3, long-term borrowing agreement. It's recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton enacts as follows: that bylaw 2021-45 being a bylaw to approve the submission of an application to the Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for the long-term financing of certain capital works of the corporation of the township of Hamilton, and to authorize it entering into a rate offer letter agreement pursuant to which the municipality will issue debentures to the OILC, be given first, second, and third reading, and finally passed this 21st day of September 2021. Thanks, Larry. Seconded by Pat. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 17.4, 2021-46, a bylaw to authorize an expense agreement. It's recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton enacts as follows: that bylaw 2021-46 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and execute an expense agreement between the corporation of the township of Hamilton and Majak Properties for property described as 4765 County Road 45, Baltimore, to permit a commercial venture on the ground floor of the building with 10 residential units, all single bedroom, on the upper floor for long-term rentals, be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed the 21st day of September 2021. Moved by Larry, seconded by Mark. Discussion? Okay, I call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 17.5, 2021-47. This is RFPW 2021-05. It's recommended council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton acts as follows. The bylaw 2021-47 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and execute a contract agreement between the Civica Infrastructure Inc. and the township of Hamilton for request for a proposal number PW 2021-05 be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed the 21st day of September 2021. Moved by Larry, seconded by Mark. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried. 17.6, now this is our ORV pilot project. Obviously, we've made a change here. So there's not much sense in reading this bylaw as written.
No, Mr. Mayor, if I may, this bylaw we would record as withdrawn at this time, and then we would resubmit when it's refined.
Okay, thank you. So then we do withdraw, waiting for staff, the staff report that's coming forward. So we're at 17.7, 2021-51, a bylaw to authorize cost sharing agreements. Recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton and acts as follows. The bylaw 2021-51 being a bylaw to execute a cost sharing agreement between the corporation of the township of Hamilton and the McKinleys for the transfer of assumption of Clark McKinley, be given a first, second, and third reading and finally passed this 21st day of September 2021. Thanks, Pat. Seconded by Larry. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. There's no notice of motions. Don't believe we have any media on the line, do we? Oh, go ahead, Nazra.
To you, Mr. Mayor, if I may ask, a bylaw number 2021-45 that's related to water financing, can that be recorded in terms of vote?
Gonna have to have staff start writing this right down in front of my face that it has to be a recorded vote. So we need to move back. What was the number again? 17.5, is that's right?
Oh, bylaw number 2021-45. I going to
17.3.
That's correct. 17.3.
17.3. Okay, there we go. I've got it now, right? So again, let's go back to our minutes, Kate, and back up to that 17.3 issue and reopen. It's already been moved and seconded and actually passed, but we need to do it by recorded vote. So
Okay, so I'm going to call on Deputy Mayor Jibb. Yay or nay?
Yay.
And Councillor Lovshin,
Yay.
Councillor McCourt,
I said yay, honest.
Councillor Williamson,
Yay.
and Mayor Kane.
yay.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
And so again, I don't believe we have any media on the line, so we can move quickly to section 20. And I think before we go into closed, if anyone needs a short break, we've been at this for 3+ hours. It is, I have 4:40 right now. Can we be back? Is 5 minutes enough? Okay, so can we reconvene at 4:45, please? I don't know if we need to put that in a motion. We're taking a 5-minute recess, or it can be noted in the minutes or something.
It's noted in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. So we have 5 minutes, everyone. I need a drink and I'm not sure this is the one.
Bill, can I just pass on to you? I don't have my charger with me. I'm on low battery. If I end up leaving, I will call in.
Okay. Hopefully it'll hang in there for a little bit longer.
That's what I'm hoping.
If you keep your picture off as much as possible, it'll save some battery power.
It's not clean, thank you. It's not clean, thank you. Oh, you're catching a lot of fruit flies. Yeah.
Yeah.
We still have Faye McFarland.
So we've got all 5 of our members of council back. Are you with us, Kate, so we can start up again? There she is.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. So that's the recess. We're moving to section 20 closed. I have a prepared motion to move to closed session to discuss matters permitted under section 239 subsection D labor relations. And the motion reads, it's recommended that the council of the corporation of the township of Hamblin acts as follows: that the regular council meeting held on September 21st, 2021 go to closed session at 4:46 p.m. under section 239 subsection D to discuss labor relations or employee negotiations. Moved by Scott, seconded by Mark. Thank you. All in favor? So we are now closed. I just remind members of council to remember that you are to be alone in the room. There's been no other family members present. So, Arthur, do you have something?
Yes, we do have one guest that's still a part of the participants. That's Faye McFarland. So we're going to ask her not to be part of the closed meeting, which is fine. She now knows that we've gone into motion to go to closed, and we're going to take her off as a panelist. And
Daphne's taking care of that for us.
Yeah, she'll be doing that. And then panelists should only show every member of council, Clerk Kate, Kurt, Daphne, and Deputy Emily, as well as Colleen. Yes, okay.
Okay, we're all alone.
Through you, Mayor King.